everyone, and welcome back to our impromptu history of superhero movies. It's our absolute last episode, and I can say that with confidence. Whatever happens tonight, we're not making an episode 13, and instead of making an episode 13, we've decided to cheat tonight and do a double episode. So we're taking, usually Friday nights, we do either a superhero rewind, commentary, or we do a watch party. Tonight we decided to take the entire evening and just finish this up. So we're gonna do not 1 but 2 hours, and we're still gonna use the timer, just for old time's sake. And the first hour on the timer is going to be our recent history of superhero movies. So we did the couple of years pre-COVID last time, and we're gonna do post-COVID until we hit an hour tonight. So I don't know, just like how far we'll get. We'll mention the big stuff. We'll get essentially up to last Thursday. That's the idea. Not that anything came out last Thursday. That's a euphemism. And then our second hour will speculate about the future. It'll be kind of a built-in speculation cast about just superhero screen stuff, or superhero movies, I should say, in general.
One a big thing for us is that we knew that there was at least 2 parts left, and we're both very superstitious, so we didn't want to have a part 13. We just wanted to do a longer part 12, and if we do make another one, it will be part 14. So just to be safe.
Yeah, and we're doing this on a Friday, so it would have been Friday the 13th episode.
Exactly. We just wanted to avoid all bad vibes with that.
And that would have been a mistake, because this is, I think, the first time we've ever done this on a Friday.
Yes.
So I'm superstitious enough to be worried about that, too. Just mean the first time we did it that way.
Yeah, exactly.
I have not really given this a great deal of thought. I've been really busy with stuff, Austin. I just finished a writer's meeting right before this, so I have literally no idea what is going to come up and what we're going to talk about tonight. I know that we got through 2019 last time. We're going to get into 2020 stuff. Austin, I'm sure, will have a better memory, just like last time, of what has come out more recently and what the COVID and post-COVID movies are.
Well, that's the big thing, is that I didn't do any prep today, but I've been prepping for this for the last 4 years. So I'm ready through that. I've lived it. I'm ready to go.
He's going to graduate from superhero movie high school. He's been working on it for 4 years.
Exactly.
Have you been going to Sky High? That's a movie I don't think ever came up.
No, I don't think so. Probably because I think I've seen that once, like when I was a kid. Like, that's a movie I should probably rewatch.
Yeah, you probably should. Possibly for the next project for this series that we're going to
Yeah, which we'll announce at the end, yeah.
Right at the end, yeah. So stick around. You're going to have to wait 2 hours, or just, wait till tomorrow and then jump ahead. Watch this after the fact. But yeah, we are going to continue the Superhero Rewind Unscripted series as a duo discussion, multi-part episodes on like larger ideas and concepts like this. So 12 parts on superhero movie history. You can go back and check out all of that if you for whatever reason are watching part 12 right now and you haven't looked at the others. But we're going to do another thing like this afterwards that could be that many parts as well, or will probably be at least 8 or 10, because I figure we'll be a little bit long-winded on it.
Yeah, and at some point we can do like an 18-part series about the most shafted characters.
Is that a joke? Because that's actually not the worst idea I've heard.
Take it for however you will, sir.
Well, I loved making that video back in the scripted days, the shafted characters video, and that was, almost a decade ago, or maybe more than a decade ago. So there's a lot more.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot more.
There's a lot more. We can totally do that. The idea for this, because we went to the commentary series for reviews, and for anybody that hasn't looked at that yet, we're almost to episode 20 now, and we're trying to do commentaries now for every superhero movie ever made, kind of starting back over from scratch. So even if we have 19 commentaries on a movie, like with Batman '89, we are doing another one again, and with the old scripted series, I occasionally would come in and do not reviews, but kind of video essays, discussion things on superhero movie related topics, like top 10 of the decade, which I did for both of the last decades, and like Austin said, shafted movies, best casting choices, that kind of thing. And we're going to continue that tradition with this, because I have really been loving how well these have been going, and just this conversation. This has been a big kind of gauntlet, just going through all the years, and it's been a lot of fun. And we've had a lot of little mini fights about things too, which I've also really enjoyed.
Yeah, well, it's funny because you pitched this one, and I think I pitched the next one we're doing. So it's like kind of batoned back and forth.
That's true. Like with a lot of things we do.
Exactly.
We're talking about even another thing that we're going to do that with. I can't get rid of Austin at this point.
Yeah,
he is the glue that holds it together. Okay, let's go ahead and get into it, Austin. Maybe we should answer these super chats real quick. We've got two before I start the clock, and just as I traditionally have been doing, Austin, I'm gonna throw you a question at the beginning.
Perfect.
Great and powerful Dodd 49 super chat. Why do the Venom titles sound like 80s hairband albums? I want a decades later sequel called Venom: The Reunion Tour.
They do, yeah. They should do what Guardians 2 did, where like all the like artwork and stuff for that was very like albumy.
Yeah.
Like there was that like first image of the cast where it was like all of them like up against a wall and stuff, like their roadsters. They should do that with Venom. Yeah.
But that would require Venom to have a vision.
Exactly.
Its only vision has been weird and outdated. That's been the whole vision.
Well, this one will be the Blade Trinity of the trilogy because now we're letting the writer direct it this time.
Oh my goodness, is that true? I didn't know that name right off. I hadn't looked into it.
Yeah, that's who's doing it.
I would love a tell-all interview from what's his face who directed the last one.
Oh, Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis, yeah, because that is a talented guy who made a really, really bad superhero movie, and I'm sure he just did the best with what he had. Like, I really like Andy Serkis. Maybe he's just not a good director. I think it's more likely that it was what do you do with that script? And
yeah,
like you just lean into the chaos, right?
Well, I think that's what he did. Like, I think that's what that movie is. He got on and was like, "This is ridiculous. Let's just head right into it."
Yeah, I don't think you can fault him for that. In the same way that I have never fully faulted Schumacher for Batman and Robin, because he just made the product that he was hired to make. Like, I'm imagining Andy Serkis doing the same thing right before I take, okay, everybody, it's a cartoon!
Except it was, remember, everybody, it's a Sony picture.
And Don had another 49 super chat. He said, a friend of mine wants to have a Madam Web watch party. Any drinking... Why is he still your friend? Any drinking game ideas for this? What drugs do I need?
Drop acid.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think with drugs, the answer is yes.
It's not which, it's yes.
And with drinking games, like with a lot of things, it's hard to come up with something that wouldn't kill you.
Yeah,
like every time you see a character, you didn't see it.
Take a shot for every time the trio of girls aren't in their superhero costume.
See, I was going to go the other way. I was going to say take a drink every time you see the suits and they're not actually real.
Don't you only get one drink then?
Oh, I guess it's 2 or 3. There's little glimpses of it. Yeah, I'm struggling to find that thing that happens a few times that would be funny.
I feel like it's one of those drinking games where you probably have to do like a few things where it's like take a shot if this happens, if that happens.
So it's like a bingo card, but with drinking?
Yeah, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
Yeah, and I saw it the one time and have kind of excised it. Like, I would need to watch it again, and I'm not going to do that until I'm absolutely forced to.
Take a shot every time Dakota Johnson doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, you'd be dead in 20 minutes. You can feel that through the screen. Well, I say that, like, I think she tried the best she could with it, but you could tell there's this, like, venomous frustration underneath it with, like, why am I in this movie? It's like, she does her job.
She's probably like, oh, man, like, I just got out of 50 Shades. I'm just, like, doing, like, more indie stuff. I was supposed to have my Pattinson moment and then go into a superhero thing, and I got Madam Web.
Oh, I know what it is. I know what the answer to that is. It's bizarre and counterintuitive Peter Parker and Spider-Man references.
There you go.
That's what it is. You'd have 8 or 9.
What's the matter, Uncle Ben? You never been shot in New York before?
Okay, let's go ahead and get into the last few years of the history of superhero movies. We've finally caught up to almost now, which is surreal to me, because, of course, 2019, 2020 feels like yesterday to me. And here we go. The clock has started, and I'm going to ask Austin a question. Austin, COVID happens, and a lot of superhero movies, like a lot of movies in general, get shelved for a while, pushed off, come out later than they were supposed to, stop shooting, and have to come back later. Of the movies that released during this period that we had to either watch streaming, or you could do either, go to the theater or watch streaming, where we don't really know what the box office receipts would have been had they been released normally. Which of those movies do you think would have been like a big deal success that would do huge guns to the box office and would maybe affect things positively? And which of them would have been a massive bomb and might have affected things negatively?
Oh, that's not where I thought you were going with that question. That
You say that every time. I curveball you constantly.
That's a major curveball. God, which one of those movies does better? I don't know, because we have such like an awful period, like whether there's COVID or not.
Yeah.
Like there's just so many bad movies.
Are any of those COVID superhero movies like great movies?
No.
You know, like I formulated that question, and like I thought of that on the fly, and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if any of them would have been like giant successes. Here's a question: does Black Widow bomb, or is it just like an kind of even makes its money back?
I feel like that's an even makes its money back.
Because it's before
Dan
the
Sen brings up Wonder Woman.
It's before the MCU reputation is what it is now. 84 would have absolutely bombed.
I agree with what he's saying. I think that would have opened big and then probably would have had a big drop off.
Well, it would have been BVS all over again. It would have had a 70-80% drop the second weekend.
Yeah, exactly. No, I imagine a lot of people would be walking out saying exactly what my mom did when she rented that on Christmas Day, which was for like 20 minutes. She was like, that was really bad. Does anybody else agree with me? And it's like, yes, Mom, we all agree. That was really bad. We all know. I don't even like the first one.
My wife liked it okay for what that's worth. I don't really understand that, but there's no accounting for taste. I think she appreciated something that was just kind of goofy fun, but I'm like, but Sarah, it was on for so long.
That is the big thing with that movie, is it's like a lesser Superman movie, but way, way too long.
Yeah, it should have been an hour and a half, and then I don't think people would have been as offended by it.
Like Cheetah in that world, like that era of movie, would be like one of the X-Men henchmen that is there for a fight and has no character, but she's got like
you're so right about that
40-minute long subplot.
Yeah,
that does nothing for the movie.
Yeah, and then while it's a Saturday morning cartoon, it's also, like, in places anyway, weirdly self-serious with its social commentary and stuff.
Yeah, that movie's rough.
Anyway, we don't want to just review these things again, but yeah. I think that would have ultimately been a big bomb, but would it have really changed or affected things much? No, because the DCU EU was already falling apart.
Yeah, and I think Sonic, with its sequel, shows that it probably wouldn't have done it much better.
If we're counting those as superhero things.
Yeah, I think they count. Like, they're more adjacent, but it's in that realm.
Sure.
Birds of Prey would have still bombed.
Yep. Well, Birds of Prey I went to the theater for. I feel like that was
like right on the cusp.
Not quite a COVID movie.
It was like, it opened and then a week later the world shut down. It was one of those. Same with Sonic.
Okay. Your memory is
Um,
so much better for this than mine.
but then you have something like like the Suicide Squad. Like I love that
Right.
movie. That movie's so expensive. Like I don't know if it would have made its money back. It probably
No,
would have done better, certainly.
yeah, you'll have to help me remember what other things released during this period. And I mean, it wasn't a ton because some stuff got held off, but I asked if there were any great movies during that. But I guess the Suicide Squad is the one that's
And
like,
it's more on the later end, but yeah, like it probably still counts. Like
yeah,
it's
but that is legitimately a really good film.
mhm.
It took
Well,
me
and
four
that is
times
part
to
of
appreciate it, but I love it now.
and that is one of the WB movies that released
Right.
both ways. Like it was a big hit on Max, but like it made
I
like 60 million at the box office.
Yeah, and I think if it comes out, full wide and people don't have to worry about masks and things, it makes its money back and doesn't do much better than that.
Yeah, and if you can't watch it at home, probably. But like also in that period, like you have the awkward thing of like let's say people with kids, like you have to go out now you have to get a babysitter, but like it's weird because we're in like a pandemic, so like
Yeah.
all of that stuff's awkward.
But I guess what I'm saying is if the pandemic had not happened and that when that movie comes out,
Mhm.
I think it just does okay. I
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning to.
Because any way you slice it, having any of the same characters from that first movie, it's going to have some baggage.
Yep.
And that movie did well financially, but not. We talked about this already, of course, but not critically. And I was for folks that did like it, I think reappraised pretty quickly as a not very good movie. Leto was legendarily bad for the majority of people. Joker coming out and being really popular didn't help that whole thing. Where it's like now we have a good one again.
Hmm. When the first Suicide Squad is also like weirdly popular among like normies. So like I feel like there was probably also like another group of people that were annoyed that they basically rebooted.
Oh, maybe so.
But
I
I
don't
could be
appreciate
wrong.
that angle because we had this conversation when we talked about Suicide Squad. I have not seen that world as much as you have of
Yeah,
people that
I've had so many people come
still
up
really
to me
like
and be
that film.
like, "Suicide Squad, man, like that's the movie," and I'm like, "What are you smoking? Because I want it."
So it's like they ruined that for them because they soft rebooted and it's kind of a different thing.
Yeah, because I've heard a few people say that where it's like, "Oh, like where's those characters I liked in the first movie?" And I'm like, I mean, most of them are there, but better. But
Yeah, but
you know,
if they really liked Will Smith's Deathshot, if like just looking at it
yeah,
from their perspective, if you liked 100% of everything in that movie,
where's Killer Croc? Why
where's
is there like a
yeah,
shark man instead? Yeah, absolutely.
exactly. So
Why does
yeah,
Rick have a personality now?
so that's the one really good movie that comes out in a non-pandemic world and doesn't make waves and probably doesn't really change much of anything.
Hmm.
There is that question. It's gonna be hard not to do just a ton of like past speculation with this too. And I mean, I guess I opened with that question. So I mean, I'm already in that place, but
Hmm.
we'll start like breaking down, what actually happened here in a little bit. But there is that question too of if you, and some of this is just annoying butterfly effect stuff, but if the pandemic doesn't happen, does James Gunn still get that job? Like, is with DCU?
Hmm.
Like, what does the future of DC's superhero movies look like without the pandemic?
I feel like it's probably similar, but it's hard to say because
I mean, that's the thing we have to ask on both ends of it. We have to ask that with MCU also because is their streaming strategy different without the pandemic?
well, that's the issue with Marvel too. Is that Marvel? It's both. It gets hit by streaming and a CEO change. So like
Yeah,
you have a CEO comes in that's like we're all on streaming now. Like that's the big ticket.
and then you
So
end up with that with Warner's also. Just
mhm,
not
yeah,
right during the pandemic, but shortly after it. Then you got the Zaslav wave.
yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, fascinating. There would have
Mhm,
been some sea changes regardless of the pandemic, but that had to have affected a lot of that stuff.
yeah, no, definitely. I think Marvel would have taken a hit anyways, just because they had to shift that focus, and we all know how well they handled the TV stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
I just don't know if they would have pushed out quite as many TV shows the way they did. But then I guess,
that was all Disney. Like that's all that plan.
yeah, that's true. The pandemic pushed some of that off, but it's not like they were greenlighting a lot of stuff during that, I think, though.
Yeah, you have that famous. I don't know if it was a Comic Con or what. Maybe it was D23. But JPEG was like, "Okay, Lucasfilm and Marvel, you guys have to announce 10 shows each." And like clearly
I
both
forgot
of them
about that.
weren't ready for that, and most of those Lucasfilm ones didn't even happen.
Wow.
Like I think no matter what, they would have been hit by that. If anything, there is a question of if the pandemic maybe helped them in the degree that you had to keep putting things off. Like maybe it gave them more time. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
Which is crazy when you think about movies that aren't very good and might have been even worse.
Because you also have things like Spider-Man No Way Home where half the scenes look like none of the actors are there because of the pandemic as well. Like there's also movies that were hit by that and the reverse. So it's really hard to, kind of balance that.
And then you have movies that were put off already because of turmoil for various reasons happening behind the scenes that come out post-pandemic and were supposed to come out even well before that, like The Flash, which probably has the record for just the sheer amount of time that footage sat on a shelf. I mean, like, that beats out, am I wrong about this? That beats out New Mutants at this point.
Yeah, probably. Which is also one of the first like big COVID superhero movies.
Yeah.
That was like one of the big sacrifice the movie to the theaters. Let's test the waters.
Yeah, I forgot about that because that did not release simultaneous. You couldn't watch that at home.
Yeah, I think they like threw it in the theater and it did nothing. And then after that, they did the Mulan and Black Widow strategy where it was the $30 rental thing.
Well, it's funny you say that because I actually memorized the number of the opening weekend of what New Mutants took in, and it was exactly $30.
You're much more liberal. I was going to say $7, but I was going to say it was the James Bond opening. It got $007.
Well, I think Connor and I both saw it for a review, so that's at least like a third of the box office.
Unless one of you saw it on a Tuesday, or both of you.
Sure, yeah. Or like a weekend matinee.
Exactly.
What other movies came out with the simultaneous thing or were massively affected by that?
So obviously you have
like
Black Widow.
I'm sorry, I was going to say casualties of the pandemic.
Obviously you have Black Widow, which the big thing with that is Johansson suing Disney over it.
Yeah.
Which
she seemed. I mean, I don't want to get into the politics of it, but she seemed kind of within her rights with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. That was one of those things where I was like, as a person, like I don't really care. Like she's in the right, she should win. But I'm not like too like, oh man, like I'm gonna follow this because to me, like I'm just going, okay, it's $1 billion corporation versus a millionaire fighting over money. Like I got better things to do.
No,
she
of course.
was in the right. Like that.
I didn't get outraged with it. I'm just saying that I don't think she was a crazy person for being upset and fighting that because
they definitely screwed her.
They went against contractual obligations. Most certainly.
Exactly.
And you can see how, I'm not saying it's based just on this, but with examples like that, you can see why there was an Actors Guild and a Writers Guild strike very soon after that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because just the way, people were being treated in general in that.
When the streaming thing was one of the big two. It was like AI and streaming rights.
Yeah, because you can't get royalties from things being rerun on television anymore. So if you're not paid enough up front and you've got contracts where you have to work for months on end on one thing, you can't survive. And that was a lot of the grievance. Don't want to spend too much time talking about that, but I'll put that in as a
big thing,
as a footnote because that's gonna. That should probably be part of our speculation discussion in the second half, is how that affects everything moving forward. And AI and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. So for
Although I
like,
think we could just put a big question mark on the screen for an entire hour and just get up and go have, a donut or something.
I just wanted my coffee. You get arrested in the like the Riddler. Um,
I'm really glad you explained that, actually.
I know. I was like, I probably need to give some sort of explanation because that's too generic.
The
I also don't
Batman,
think that's exactly what he
the
says, but
Batman was a movie, was kind of a COVID movie, in that, like, I think that was one of those movies where the set shut down and it took them longer to make it, but
it did. And Pattinson got COVID, I
oh,
think, and
that's
you have that
right.
with the Suicide Squad. Idris Elba was like the second celebrity. It was like Tom Hanks and Idris Elba.
I didn't remember that. Wow.
Mhm. Yeah, because I remember my mom being like, "Oh my God, Idris Elba got COVID," and I was like, "Oh, that would be on the Suicide Squad set." That's unfortunate.
Yeah. But both of those movies came out relatively unscathed. I mean, I think there's no disputing that they would be somewhat different movies. I don't know how much. There's probably like minor things that would have been tweaked about them had that not happened.
Yeah, those movies specifically like are made well enough that I don't think you can really tell that they probably had to deal with the. Oh, that's right. It was pumpkin pie that he was waiting for.
Oh
Anyways,
yeah, there's
uh,
probably scenes where like Pattinson and like Chloe Grace Moretz aren't on set together, but you can't tell. Like, oh no, not
Zoe
Chloe Grace.
Kravitz.
What is her name?
Zoe
Zoe
Kravitz.
Kravitz. That's who it is.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, there probably is stuff that we like don't catch. Like
Yeah,
it's
I
not.
almost just said I can't remember her name, and then a name came in my head, and I was like, I think I've got it. I'll just say it. No, that's not
That's the
right,
girl.
is it?
She was in a COVID movie. It was a Tim Story, Tom and Jerry movie, though.
Oh no. Poor Chloe Grace Moretz. She's had a really unfortunate career
I know it's really sad.
because I
That was
loved
my
her,
review of
and
that movie. Was I feel so bad for Chloe Grace Moretz.
I mean, I'm talking about her like she's dead, but like she hasn't been anything in a really long time that I remember liking.
I don't know. I would rather be dead than in a Tim Story movie. I think I can say that.
Yeah, or the remake of Carrie.
hmm
Ugh. But anyway,
Yeah. You have something like No Way Home. Like No Way Home, you can really tell is a COVID movie if you know what you're looking for. Like
yeah.
you'll get scenes like Peter calling Flash, and it's Flash like in downtown New York, and like there's
I'm sorry,
nothing
for a second
around.
I was like, Peter can't call the Flash.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
and it's
oh,
like
oh.
he's like it's a multiverse movie, Cap. He calls
Yeah,
the Flash.
yeah, and I bet there's scenes where he and Chloe Grace Moretz are not on set together.
Exactly. You know that MCU Spider-Man and the Flash's conversation is like, um, I really hate brunch. Oh, you don't like brunch? That's awesome, dude. That is their entire conversation.
Why is your impression of his exactly the same as your Heath Ledger Joker?
Because Ezra Miller just is a real life Heath Ledger Joker, as we all know.
Like, we're even deeper into the Twilight Zone
Mhm.
with this period of superhero movies. It's kind of more crazy than not crazy.
Yeah, I think I've said this on the channel before. Just looking at Marvel, like I think it really makes you appreciate how well everything came together through like that first 10, 11 years. Obviously, there's mistakes and missteps, but like after that, there's
Especially,
a lot more, and then you have like more controversy stuff.
yeah, especially
Yeah.
compared to where we are now. It wasn't riddled with controversy.
hmm Yeah,
There were
exactly.
movies people liked more than others, but for a long time, the biggest complaint that most of us had was Dark World is boring.
hmm It
That
wasn't.
lasted a long time.
It wasn't, oh my God, what is going to happen with their main villain that every movie is setting up?
Yeah. And some of that controversy is, I, how, and I won't get into this too much, but this is just the discussion, right?
Mhm.
How much are these movies driven by a social agenda? I mean, like people are constantly arguing about that with these things, and then it's behind the scenes, actors that it turned out were maybe poor choices because of things happening in their personal life that will then get them kicked off of sets, or people that unfortunately pass away, like Chadwick Boseman, which is just a thing you can't do anything about.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's really crazy, like
There's
the
been
amount of just bad luck they've had.
a lot more compromise,
Hmm.
because of that. I would say that the biggest turmoil that I just had this thought that MCU and the DCEU have respectively are very, very different things. DCEU made lots of really poor creative choices going all the way back, and Marvel got into a place where I would argue they made some creative missteps, not to anything like the severity of the DCEU, but the DCEU's biggest problems end up being we put too many eggs in the rock basket with Black Adam, and we thought making a Flash movie that was really a backdoor 89 Batman movie, but wasn't really that version of Batman, but was Michael Keaton with the car that he was never going to drive, that would be the big thing that would kind of bring us back, and that Michael Keaton would hold all these movies together like Nick Fury, and then he'll end up not being in any more of them, and the other one that we shot will shelve. Those are the issues DCEU is having. MCU,
Have we talked about the Rock thing though after Black Adam?
MCU is going, we're like we've got a major actor that's died. We've got people that are in trouble, litigation and stuff. Well, I guess DC had that with the one thing with the Flash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had
the
like,
one
bigger, yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry. What was your point about the Rock?
Oh, so Black Adam bombs and like The Rock goes away, and the thing he does immediately is he goes back to wrestling and becomes like the big like villain there, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna like fight for my family's bloodline or whatever." I don't know, I don't care, but
Okay.
But they did WrestleMania and I had a birthday party for my one friend, and we all watched it because he really likes that stuff. And when he entered the ring, uh, everything goes black, and there's flashes of lightning across the screen, and then The Rock walks slowly down, and they're having like CGI lightning hit everyone in the crowd, like he's Black Adam.
Which is so awkward because they wouldn't have even had the rights to use that character.
That was just lightning.
Oh,
But
no.
Black Adam has arrived, and there was a person.
We're finally getting justice for Black Adam.
And there was a person in the crowd that held up a Black Adam sucks sign.
Really? That's so good. That's because it just does.
Yeah, it just does. We all know. I had to watch that a second time not that long ago. When I was on vacation, like a week or two ago. My mom was like, "I love The Rock. We should watch this."
And things keep putting stuff like that in perspective, because as unwatchable as I thought that was, then The Flash happens.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a part
really
of me
bad. It's not at the bottom of my DC.
If I have to watch either of those, I would almost pick Flash first, just because, like, at least it's got Keaton, and like there's a couple of things that are sort of fun. But then the scenes that make me like cringe and want to get up and leave are more few and far between in Black Adam than they are in Flash. But Black Adam was just a bad idea overall, and there's just weird choices with that. But Flash is like painful.
The Flash is a roller coaster where like you'll hit a scene where you're like, "Oh, that was like actually okay. Like that was maybe fine." And then the next scene will be one of the worst scenes you've ever seen in a movie. And Black Adam is just a straight line of mediocrity.
Yeah.
And I feel like I would maybe pick that just because some of the low lows of The Flash are like really bad. But like,
yeah, sure.
I don't know. Like it's really hard to judge.
Well, and I would say both of those movies have, we're just reviewing these again, both of those movies have an MVP supporting actor where you go, this person is too good for this movie and doesn't know what they're in. And in Black Adam, it's Pierce Brosnan, and in The Flash, it's the actress that plays Barry Allen's mom.
Oh, sure. I thought you were gonna say Keaton, but you're right. It is the mom.
No, I mean, I love Keaton, but he doesn't know what the hell he's doing in that movie, and neither do they.
Mhm.
No, she's spectacular.
She's really good. Yeah, she's absolutely the best part of that. She like completely sells that goodbye scene, I think.
Yeah. How do I have a tear jerking scene like that makes me almost kind of think about possibly tearing up?
And in a movie where I like actually want to kill the protagonist.
I was gonna say, or like want to vomit.
Mhm. And like I want Keaton to light him on fire like that one guy in Returns.
Like, why can't he at least be Returns Batman? Let me read these couple of super chats and then we'll get back to this discussion.
Yeah.
Tobin Bell Pons 499 super chat. Chloe Grace Moretz gotta be my all-time favorite Catwoman.
All I
I'm
could think of when
never gonna live that down.
when I read that super chat when it came in, all I could think of is because you know in like the Batman where Catwoman's coming to kill Falcone in that movie. All I could think of was just that Hit Girl scene where like there's all the guys in the hallway that she's like shooting through because it's very similar hallways of like a mob boss's penthouse. And all I could see in my head was Catwoman killing a bunch of henchmen to Bad Reputation. I was like, that is one of the better Catwomans. I agree.
You're gonna say that. Dan Schneider, $5 super chat. I would rather be flashed than watch Ezra Miller's Flash.
It depends who's flashing you.
Yeah, I would think so.
That's the big thing, yeah. If the Flash is flashing you, I'd probably just kill myself at that point. But like,
so again, this conversation gets weird because we're kind of going back and rehashing things that I talked about when they were news, and now it's history, right? So folks in the comments are talking about Chadwick Boseman's death. Let's go back to that for just a second, just to touch on it.
And I'm the person who broke the news to you on that. I still remember like that moment finding out and being like, "Oh my God, Cap! Like, did you hear about this?" And you were just like, "Whoa!"
Yeah. Well, and of course, it blindsided everybody because nobody knew he was sick.
Yeah.
How involved were you in the channel at that point?
Ooh,
Like, were you actually in stuff, or were we just talking in Discord at that point?
I feel like I was probably in something at that.
This isn't going to be interesting to anybody, but I was just curious if you remembered, because that's
and I can't remember like the exact moment. Like I remember that moment being in it, but I don't remember like what like the date was.
So Black Panther 2 is just post-COVID, right? Like, does that start filming after the lockdowns?
That's 2022 in like November. So like that probably films like late 2021.
Okay. But anyway, I wanted to read these comments real quick. Jar Jar Ed, when Chadwick Boseman gave his blessing of a recast numerous times, then yeah, you recast T'Challa. He says, would we stop making Batman movies or write out Bruce Wayne because the actor that played him died? No, these characters mean so much to millions of people that they cannot just die with the actors. And I have made that point numerous times, but I have never expressed it as articulately as you just did.
I've always said that with the Batman thing and with Spider-Man, where I'm like, if Tom Holland died like tomorrow, we would get a recast like within a year.
Yeah, it's not like we didn't reboot Superman because we didn't have Christopher Reeve anymore.
It makes it more awkward in a way I don't think a lot of people think about, where it's like, look at all of these big white superheroes that we've recasted and we just keep going. And then we get like the big black superhero with Black Panther. And obviously there's movies before that, but you know what I mean? Like this is like the big one.
It was a cultural phenomenon, and a lot of that had to do with race.
And we killed the character with him.
Yeah.
Like, in a way, like, there's like an awkward thing I don't think a lot of people think about or talk about with that.
Well, and again, I always say I don't want to get too into politics, but it is a really interesting question. Like, how much do you think race plays a factor in people not wanting to see him recast? Where, like, is it because how big a phenomenon that was for a particular group of people in the country, and if it had been a white character, we wouldn't have really thought twice about recasting. Like, is that the double-edged sword of it, where like we can't recast to some degree because it's black, but then we're doing that whole thing a disservice by not having the character anymore? Because like you said, we've now buried our one big cultural phenomenon, black superhero. Like, what are we
Mhm,
doing?
mhm. Yeah, it's just really awkward. And I mean, I will give it to them, like, that's an awkward situation to be in.
Absolutely.
Like, no matter what you do, you piss somebody off. Like, I get that. Because that's always the big thing that people come back with is, yeah, but you recast Chadwick Boseman and people are angry, but like they're going to be angry no matter what. Like it was at the end of the day, it's a situation that nobody's happy with. Like it just sucks. Like we lost a really talented man, and you know,
What you
just
don't want
stuff
to
all around.
what you don't want to do is come back too fast and then make it look like you're profiting off of a man's death, and
Which
there's
is
an
what I hate
argument
with
to
that
be
second.
made that that's what that looks like.
Yeah,
I don't feel as
what I
strongly
always
about
have
it as
with
you
that thing.
do,
Mhm.
because I know that's your feeling on it. I don't mean to take your point from you, Austin,
No,
but
it's fine. No, I've always said the more respectful thing to do would have been to wait. Like just
that's what I
take
think too.
time and then like discuss whether you recast or not later. Like the fact that they were like, "Oh, he died. Well, let's make it a funeral," and like immediately did that, and then like recreated his death in the movie, which I've talked about on the channel before. But like all of that stuff is just really awkward to me, and just I can't not watch that movie and not see. I've said this awfully because it was so many negatives. Uh, it's hard for me to watch that movie and not just see Disney profiting on it. Like that's all I see when I watch that movie.
Yeah, and I feel like you know, like you said, it's a tough call there in the moment. But yeah, I think sorry, I've lost my train of thought. I think
Yeah,
they absolutely should have waited. Oh, I know what I was going to say. It's I don't like the precedent that it's setting, and you've had this to a lesser degree with some other stuff. Like this is a different thing. I sort of have this with Ghostbusters Afterlife. I don't like the precedent that we're setting with the fiction must be informed by what's happening in real life. We're like, we lose one of our actors, so the whole thing has to be about how that person is dead and we have to make it a funeral.
hmm
You know, like you can pay tribute to that without it like stifling the creativity and holding the writing back.
yeah. I think I would be more okay with exactly what that movie was if it just didn't come out right away. Like that's my
Yeah.
big thing is like they like put that movie into
It felt like
production right
strike while the
away.
iron is hot.
Yeah, and I think that's the most uncomfortable thing about it. And plus GDX is saying, but you don't understand the director was really sad. I get that, and like I'm sure everybody was sad. Like it's an awful situation. I'm just saying this is how like I feel watching it. Like to me it feels like they're just profiting off of this man's death, and I think that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Mhm.
And also, I can kind of understand the argument from the other side where it's difficult to do that recasting. And if we did already have a movie somewhat in production, we've decided to go ahead and make it. What do we do with that? So, like, I'm
Mhm.
not saying that this isn't a nuanced thing. And I also don't want to make it the whole
Yeah.
discussion because
And
there's
it
other
definitely
things to
would have
talk
been
about.
hard
But
to recast. Like it's absolutely an issue there too.
I think this is also somewhat indicative of a larger issue that we have with movies and fiction in general, which is just we've kind of gotten too meta and the snake eating its own tail in general. And I like really good meta fiction. Don't get me wrong, but like at some point there's got to be a separation between real life and a story you want to tell.
Absolutely. We just got a super chat about
Yeah,
this.
you want to go ahead and read it?
Oh yeah. So Tobin Bell Pones gives $10. He says it isn't race. I think they just saw T'Challa as a pillar character like Tony. If Robert Downey Jr. died, I think they would have killed off Tony. Just the same. I see where you're coming from though.
Dude, that's an excellent point, and honestly, I think he might be right about that.
It depends on when he dies.
Okay.
If he dies after Iron Man, he's recast. If it's later on, maybe not. But like I don't know. I think it depends when it happens in a timeline.
No, that's a great point. It also part of the reason it depends on when it falls in their timeline is when do they make the decision that they're not going to recast characters and have a sliding timeline. Forget the fact that they have dates right away. They still like where the date of the movie is that the movie takes place in is the date that it comes out in the theater. You can always retcon that. That's a really easy thing to just ignore, right? So when do they make the decision we're not recasting and keeping Captain America looking 32 years old forever? And when are we going to actually let these characters, when do they decide we'll let the characters die and have multiple generations of characters, which is what ultimately they did and did not fully reveal they were doing until Endgame.
Yeah, because don't forget, they also talked about it a lot as they were going to James Bond it. Like, they said that for years. So, like...
Did they really?
Yeah, that was a thing that they said quite a bit.
Wow.
On, and, like, I think the Robert Downey Jr. thing depends on when it happens.
Yeah. Well, and I don't mean to sound hypocritical when I say that. That's a really good point. I didn't think about that. With the T'Challa thing specifically, it just felt like so much of that must have been wrapped up in the phenomenon of it that I couldn't help but go to that place. I may not be fully right about that. I for the longest time was argued with people about whether they would recast, and a lot of people thought that, you know, like the gravy train. Of course you're going to keep Captain America in movies for 30 years. I mean, think about it. It's actually kind of counterintuitive that they didn't do that, but in some ways. But I was always, like, kind of passionately certain that they wouldn't do that because the actors playing them got so popular. So I'm actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm a little bit hypocritical on this because going all the way back to, like, phase 3... I didn't think that they would recast those characters, and I kind of forgot that I had that attitude about it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's right. Maybe it's not as much about that as I thought it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really hard to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that comment and the nuanced discussion about it, though.
Absolutely.
I'm really glad you brought that up because that gave me a different perspective on it.
Yeah, definitely.
Claudio Moran, $5 Canadian. They said they wouldn't recast, but they kind of did at the end. It's obvious T'Challa is coming back. Yeah, that's that loophole soft reboot thing where you go
where we get T'Challa too.
But there's gonna be a kid T'Challa so that we can like eventually have another male Black Panther, and I think that's them trying to make everybody happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So they can go here, because when he says T'Challa's coming back, no, he's not. It's they can kind of do the Smallville Jimmy Olsen thing and pretend like here's the real one though, like kind of, only in that they can make a lot of movies with that guy and have a whole, you know, mythology and history around him. Not in the way of, like, the first T'Challa doesn't count because, after all, he is the son of T'Chaka and was supposed to be king and all of that. So now you end up with two kings named T'Challa, which is weird. I just don't even know why he would call his kid the same name as his. It doesn't seem like that's what that culture does, but okay.
I mean, it's just there so we can have another T'Challa.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, it's awkward. Speaking of Marvel recast, though, oh wait, no, I'm going into the future. Never mind, we're not there yet. We're not there. That's the next hour.
No, 25 minutes from now, that's what we'll do.
Sorry, my bad.
We've been kind of jumping around. We're not really going year by year. We've only got a few to cover anyway, so we might as well just kind of keep there. But any other, like, full-on COVID movies we haven't brought up?
So in 2021, which is probably like the last year that you can say is like full COVID, I would guess. You have Eternal, Shang-Chi, and we kind of talked about No Way Home, and Black Widow, but we already also kind of talked about that.
Yeah, No Way Home is such a weird bird for me because I keep thinking it came out like a year or two ago. That just feels like last Thursday to me.
No, it's another one of those movies that, like, just missed the big anniversary.
Isn't that always weird? You're like, just wait a year.
Yeah.
I make too many things about anniversaries, but it's weird.
Godzilla -1 has that. Like, there's been a few of that recently where it's like, like you guys released it like a month before the big anniversary. And obviously with Bond and Spider-Man, like that was supposed to come out earlier, but COVID.
And like, back several years ago now, like Star Trek couldn't get their first TV show in almost like in like 15 years on for the anniversary. Like Discovery comes out a year after that. At least they had a movie.
Yeah, the 50th anniversary of James Bond was awesome because we had like Skyfall. They did like the big Blu-ray set. They did like a CD of all the songs.
No, they crushed it with that.
We got a new game that sucked, but we got a new game. Like there was like a ton of Bond stuff. And then for the 60th anniversary, they were like, "Yeah, we're remastering GoldenEye, but it's coming out next year. We couldn't get it on time."
Power Rangers nailed their 30th last year. They did a really great job with that. Sonic's big anniversary was quite good.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, now we're getting off the rails.
Yeah.
So, what were you talking about? No Way Home. So, that's a really interesting movie because it's the most successful MCU thing post-Endgame, and I think beat it out, did it not?
No.
Box office-wise, did it not?
I don't think it beat an Infinity War.
So the thing is, was Infinity War even bigger than Endgame?
No. I mean, Spider-Man didn't beat out Infinity War.
Did it not?
Think.
Okay.
I don't think.
I don't know how much money that made them because No Way Home was encroaching on $2 billion.
All three of those movies are $2 billion.
Really?
But it's just like, I don't know the decimal points on them, but I'm pretty sure Infinity War and Endgame were bigger than No Way Home. But it is like right there.
I'm sorry, it's not like New Mutants. I just didn't have the number memorized.
Well, Cap, okay, those three movies made $2 billion. Mm-hmm. New Mutants made 2.
2? You can't have just 2.
You and Connor saw it for $1 each.
We went to the last dollar theater in America together. Exactly. So anyway, but what I was going to say about that is, so No Way Home is the biggest movie that they've had since Endgame, and was and they needed really badly in the middle of kind of a run of not doing great, and then then they haven't had a huge hit really, besides Guardians 3. Which for me is a mulligan, because that's James Gunn doing one more thing that's not that connected to anything else they're doing, and then leaving to jump ship to go to the other company and to run it.
Exactly.
Whenever people bring that up is like, oh, don't worry about the MCU, they're doing fine. They had Guardians 3. I'm like, and then the guy leaves. What are you talking about?
And even then, he also wrote that movie before he got fired.
That's an old script.
Yeah, that movie's supposed to come out in 2020.
When that happened, did we like in our series here, did we even really get into the controversy with that and like his getting fired and all of that?
We probably did. Oh no, because we wouldn't have hit the Suicide Squad. No, so we haven't.
I don't think we really talked about that.
Yeah, I don't think we really have either.
But that's a really unprecedented, crazy thing that happened. And when he got fired over, tweets he made a long time ago, he got kind of canceled over it, briefly. I immediately was like it really, really bothered me. Just,
Same here.
Some of that cancel culture stuff
mad.
Really, and like case by case, obviously. But this was a case where it didn't feel warranted, and at the same time, I was weirdly optimistic about it. I was like, I think he still comes back and makes Guardians 3. Like, I think they will come to their senses on it. And there's no reason to assume Disney comes to their senses about anything. But for whatever reason, that one, and I don't mean to pat myself on the back for calling stuff, because I'm wrong a lot. But that was the thing where I was like, I just don't see a future where Gunn doesn't make Guardians 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad it happened. It's a good movie. And it just would have been really weird if that trilogy finished with somebody else, and it probably, like, who knows who they would have gotten, but I don't know how well it would have matched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still remember that, like, really vividly, because I was very angry. There was that part of me that was like, well, like, hopefully, like, if I, like, wish hard enough to, like, bring him back, like, maybe it'll happen. But, like, I don't know that that'll happen, but, like, I hope so. And obviously it did, but like I remember at the time seeing,
and
like,
then it ended up being the best thing that ever happened for his pocketbook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
one of the most fascinating things ever. That like Disney basically handed DCU their get out of jail free DCEU their get out of jail free card, assuming that that ends up working out.
And nobody could have called it. Like
No,
even oh, he's doing a DC movie. Like there was still no calling it then. Like it was just oh, he's gonna do a DC movie. Maybe he'll do something else. Maybe he'll stay at DC. Like we don't know.
no, that's that thing where there's like a million possible futures, and Doctor Strange puts up his one finger. Like we're living in that world.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's like that. There's that one of it. Everything has to work out a very specific way for that
So
one future to happen.
so Gunn is fired. Chris Pratt turns around and goes, "Did we just lose?" And then everything crumbles. It turns to dust. And then a couple years later, somebody sacrifices themselves, I guess, and then it all comes back. Is what you're saying?
That's precisely what I'm saying. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Perfect. Well, Gunn had to come back because like Star Lord sucks in those non-Gun movies. He had to be
Yeah.
like, "Look, this is what this character is." Okay, bye.
If somebody else had to come in and I don't know about directing, but writing a Guardians 3 that wasn't Gunn, I'm saying this all in hindsight. The closest thing to the right person I can think of is whoever wrote the Guardians video game.
Yeah, it would be very different, but probably like that would be fine.
I don't know. That guy at least had a good voice for those characters.
Yeah, yeah, that game is like a really good balance between the movies and the comics. I remember at the time everyone was like, "Well, it's Watiti, right? Like we're all gonna bring in Watiti," and like all the fans were like, "Oh my God, yes!" I remember genuinely like getting into
Ugh.
fights with people online that were like, "What if we just like downplay the Guardians and like since we won't get a Thor 4, like just make that as Guardians of the
Oh,
Galaxy from the
that's
third
right.
movie,"
People
and
wanted that.
it was like, I want to say things I'm not allowed on the channel.
Yeah, well, you had we talked about this already, of course, but yeah, you had people really on a high with Ragnarok, and were fine with just how farcical that got, and they saw it as taking that Guardians humor over to Thor and finally giving it a um uh you know breathing life into that and giving it its own what's what I'm looking for? God, it's late. I've been talking for a long time because I had a long writers meeting right before this. Kind of its own personality, and of course it was just too much bad improv, and I didn't see it that way. And then Love and Thunder comes out, and was that also a COVID movie?
No, that's 2022.
Okay,
That's like July.
yeah, so that's
Like
just
that's after the Batman.
and just
So it was
before.
probably filmed like with those restrictions, but
Okay, so that's
it's
right.
not released with it.
I forgot how close that was to No Way Home. But anyway, but yeah, we've talked about this, and then Love and Thunder kind of turns people against that whole thing a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Um,
I don't know how well that did at the box office.
Thor 4, that's like a 700 million. Like that, it's like No Way Home, um, Guardians 3, and then Thor. Oh, and Doctor Strange is in there too.
But was not
Uh,
real well liked by the majority of people.
yes.
And that's what I was going to say earlier about No Way Home is that movie does huge business, but is pretty divisive among fans now.
Yeah,
Or
and
at
I
least
think
in
that,
my circles. Maybe that's one of those things where the majority of people still love it. But I will say, from even people that really like it that I've talked to, I hear a lot of it's not real rewatchable. I hear a lot of I loved it as an event, but I don't think to go back and watch it again because it's kind of just a ride you're on, and then you get off and you're like, I've experienced that. When people that loved it saw it as an experience before they saw it as a story, which makes sense because it's not a good story.
mhm.
I don't
uh,
think.
yeah, I would say the general audience still really likes that movie, but there is a growing number of people that have rewatched it and go, "Oh, like this was more awkward at home."
And it makes a lot of sense because so much of that is novelty.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
so much of that is that Avengers thing again, where it's a precedent setting movie.
Mhm.
It's breaking history. It's doing a thing that hadn't been done on the big screen before, where you're taking different continuities of movies and putting them all in the same movie, not just taking characters all in the same universe, but that just got their own movies and putting them together. So like Marvel kept kind of pushing those kind of envelopes for better or worse.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I had a similar viewing experience with Endgame, where like the first time I watched, I was like, "Wow, that was really great!" Like they nailed everything. They like really landed it. And then on a rewatch, I was like, "Oh no!" Like I was just on a high. Like I was like
Yeah.
a fan that was ready to be pleased. And I like that movie, but it's got a lot of issues. Like it's not perfect.
And at the same time, like I don't mean to be an apologist for those kinds of movies, but like they set out to do what they were trying to do. Like those are uh
That's the choice they made. Yeah.
yeah, they're about the moment, right?
Mhm.
Like those movies, especially No Way Home, but Endgame to some degree, I or maybe in some ways maybe Endgame more actually the more I'm thinking about it. It's really about that moment in time where
Mhm.
like I'm sure they expect people to go back and try to, enjoy that and have that experience again, but like it really is about like that moment in history.
Yeah, so like on the first viewing, I was like, "Oh man, look how epic this climax is! Like everybody's come together, and it's like really a culmination of everything." On a rewatch, I just go, "This is really ugly. Like, like this looks awful." Some of the moments in it are cool, but like visually, it's very gross to look at.
Yeah, it definitely has that a lot in the third act.
Hmm. And then obviously there's like story issues, but we'll get there one day on the commentary project when we have to do Infinity War and Endgame together.
We're not doing that in one night.
That's what you think.
So, No Way Home. I'm glad you live in Canada. It's hard to force me to do anything from, that far away.
I was
Um,
gonna say because you would choke me out if I weren't.
well, I know it's a family show. Um, No Way Home is uh going to be for better or worse, and I would argue probably more for worse. And let me say, I don't hate that movie. I had a really fun experience with it first time around, except I really disliked the ending and from the beginning. And then I the holes in the seams immediately started showing on a second viewing, and so I was somewhere in between a lot of like our friends here on the channel, where like some of our co-hosts really hated it, and I was somewhere in the middle, really. But I think that's going to be one of the most influential movies over the next 5 to 10 years, in that it is all about uh, trying to make you feel things you felt 10, 20 years ago right now. Like it's all about the nostalgia grab, bring back, like mix in as many characters as possible. We did it to a lesser degree with Doctor Strange 2 right before that with the Professor X thing, and then we come, it's minor spoiler for that movie, and then we come in with No Way Home, and we take the three Spider-Mans and we put them together, and then
But
now we're doing,
swapped.
say again.
Said but swapped. Spider-Man's first.
Oh, Spider-Man does it before Doctor Strange does it?
Yes,
Why in my mind is that movie first?
because Doctor Strange was supposed to be, which is part of how
Oh yeah, I
awkward
knew
the
that.
setup, which is
No,
part of how awkward the setup for No Way Home is, because it was supposed to be America Chavez that does the spell that breaks the universe, which would make sense because that's her power.
yeah. No, apologies. In the
No, it's
moment,
okay.
in the moment, I had that backwards, but
It was
obviously,
supposed to be. Yeah.
yeah, because um, yeah, it's weird that you've got that before the big multiverse thing.
Mhm. One Endgame, even just outside of superhero stuff, like the way they marketed Endgame is then how they marketed Episode 9 for Star Wars. And then they tried to do it with X-Men Dark Phoenix, but nobody cared.
Yeah,
So
Well, that's the other big component to all of this is the Fox buyout and how different and we talked about that some last time.
mhm.
But now Marvel's got all the toys to play with, and I it when that starts happening and we're all more on an MCU high, that's like really great news where it's like now the universe can be more complete and it can look like we always wished it had, where you've got the Fantastic Four and the X-Men there. And now it's feeling like a lifeline, at least to me, where like FF and the X-Men in my mind, and I don't mean to be dour and negative about it, but I'm just in a place where I really don't care about that as a universe. It has kind of fallen apart for me, and so like individual projects, I'm I trying to be cautiously optimistic about, and some of them like Fantastic Four, I'm looking forward to and hoping is great, but like I don't have the investment I used to in the whole thing as a continuity. And the X-Men and Fantastic Four are, in my mind, their last great hope for uh, sustaining this as a shared universe and getting people back on board with it.
Yeah, for sure. That I mean, that's absolutely the case. And I think a lot of people have that where they're maybe kind of out, but they're also cautiously interested in Fantastic Four and X-Men. That's a
Yeah.
lot of like our circle. Like I don't know, about the general audience. I'm sure a lot of them don't care about Fantastic Four because they've only had the movie. Like that's the type of franchise you kind of have to win over people in the general audience for. With X-Men, I'm sure people will be interested when that happens.
I guess we're probably getting close to segueing now into the future stuff, because that's almost where we're at right now. And there's still a couple other movies we should probably bring up before that happens. But I was just gonna say, I like looking forward. It's weird, and I'm saying this right now just because of like what's in the air and what the interest is. I don't know how true this is going to be when we finally get to X-Men, which sounds like it's coming sooner than we all thought it was going to. By
Yeah,
the
it's
way.
been what was the Production Weekly, I think, was the one that was like they're going into production on that at the end of 2025, I
That's crazy.
think. Yeah.
But there's not an insignificant number of people that are suddenly on an X-Men high because of X-Men '97, and I think that's actually kind of going to help them a little bit. I don't know like how much that's going to affect like box office dollars. And I don't mean to say like, oh, X-Men '97 is good, 'cause I like that a lot. That show is good, so that means that the MCU is turning around. Like, I don't think that there's any real clear correlation, no matter how much connection they decide ultimately to do between that show and the MCU. But I think it does. It is helping to like bring back interest in that property.
Well, I'd love to know like what the numbers on that are. Just because like it is a revival of an older show. Like I want to know like how well it's doing
I'm just hearing
viewership
a lot
wise.
of, and this is all anecdotal, but I'm hearing stories here and there of people that never watched that show, but are watching this and liking it. Like
Mhm.
the
I'm
the
sure there are,
the
yeah.
hype seems kind of real with it, and as long as they stick the landing with this first season, um, I think that might be kind of a nice boost for them, just in getting it back in the limelight again, and like the merchandising has been really good.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
Just it feels like the first Marvel event we've had in a while, where a lot of people are paying attention to it.
And the majority of people talking about it are enjoying it. Like it's not a not necessarily controversial, but mixed bag.
It's not,
Like
yeah,
even
and I was gonna say it's not super controversial for most of us. There's those weird pockets, and that I've heard about. I haven't really seen myself because I'm not online a lot, which is weird because of what I do, but I'm not. I but I've heard there's like naysayers that are complaining that it's too um woke or whatever, and I'm not seeing that. I don't know what anybody's talking with that about with that, and I don't
well,
really
I
care.
want to say
But
that's more like
that's not the
uh,
experience I'm having with it. So,
I want to say that's more of like a marketing thing. Like before it came out, I mean,
oh,
there's like a
okay.
ton of that on YouTube, but I feel like when that was the loudest was before it actually came out. I think the most of the complaints I've heard after it's come out have been things Like, I just think it's kind of dumb, and then fans going, "Well, it's '90s X-Men," which
Yeah,
isn't.
yeah, it is kind of dumb. That's what I like about it.
Yeah.
Or that's one of the things I like about it. But it's a little bit
hmm
more sophisticated. It's a little smarter.
hmm Yeah, because I see a lot of like, oh, well, it is '90s X-Men, and I'm like, that's not entirely fair. Like, when you bring it back, you should uh, make it a little bit more like better quality, which from what you've said is
I
seems
think
to be
they
the
have. I
case.
think it just depends on
Just depends on who's
what you
watching
what
it,
you
and yeah.
want. Yeah, like that's a balance thing. And
Absolutely.
I think they've been really clear about what they're wanting to make, and it might not be what you want, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Tobin Belpon's 1999 super chat. Thank you so much for the support tonight, man. Gunn should be applauded for how professional and grateful he behaved during his reinstatement. Disney didn't deserve any niceties after effing him over. He just accepted the return and gave us a damn great movie.
Yeah, I think there was people kind of talking about the whole cancellation, kind of his views and stuff. And I think like he as a person has grown quite a bit from that, and that it's very much how we changed like how he interacts with people, I think, online. Um, and I do think like there is like a level of maturity that he came to with that. And he very easily could have been like, here's the middle finger, I'm gone, like I'm not coming back after that. But he did it. Like he did a really good movie out of it. There's certain things that I think you can tell Disney let him get away with, probably because of the situation.
Yep.
Like I doubt that movie would be the first MC with an F bomb if it weren't for that. But who knows?
That's hard to say considering they're allowing a rated R movie with Deadpool.
That is true.
So, like, I
They've
think I
also like
agree with
relaxed
you,
on it a
but
little bit more since
that
then.
might not be the case. I don't know.
hmm
Bob the
Well,
Hun,
the
five
big
dollars.
thing is, and I
Yeah.
think Infinity War Endgame was supposed to have it with Fury, and they wouldn't let it. So
Oh.
like that's not too far away from it. Like I think they've slowly kind of restricted that back to allow for things.
Bob the Hun, $5 super chat. The problems people have with No Way Home is the crap that's in every MCU film. I just sort of tuned that out. At least it had some stuff for me. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, I guess, get into an argument about what other people are complaining about with that movie. More of what I've heard from people and just more of what my like personal problems were with that movie. Like, yeah, there's some kind of typical MCU comedy stuff that gets in the way if that's what you're talking about, but like there's characters acting wildly out of character. The initial premise I don't think really makes a lot of sense. I feel like the rules and the mythology that they established, they don't really stick to by the end. It just feels like a really sloppy, thrown together script in order to make a gimmick happen because it was made so much at the 11th hour based on an after credit gag they decided to make the entire movie. And so you can tell how forced together honestly, considering the way that movie comes together in the first place, it's kind of amazing how well it does hold together.
That movie's written like Todd McFarlane. Like they just wrote it 2 minutes at a time, where they're like, okay, we finished 2 minutes. Now do the next 2 minutes.
And like Todd McFarlane, where they're writing backwards from a conclusion, where that's not characters driving a story that gets you to a place. And you could argue that a lot of their movies aren't that anyway, because so much of it's like action set pieces that they've already built before they even hire a director. Like I get that, but this movie really has that problem.
hmm
So
Absolutely.
in that way, Bob the Hun, you're right. It does have some kind of standard MCU problems, but I think it's like much more exaggerated with that. And most MCU movies don't have the big two problems that I have with that movie. And like I said a minute ago, again now we're just reviewing it again. That it I it has characters acting like massively out of character, and I just don't even buy that Doctor Strange would do the thing that gets it started in the first place. I think they kind of throw Peter under the bus too, but they really throw Doctor Strange under the bus with that. And the second thing is I'm forgetting where I was going with that. Sorry, I'm
Second thing is that
I'm
movie
fading a
sucked.
little bit as late as late as it's getting. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
So the second thing is that movie sucks.
I'll think of it.
But yeah, outside of that, 'cause we're like pretty near the end. The last few movies we really have are
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
we get Shang-Chi and Eternals, the like 4 DC films that came out last year: Blue Beetle, The Flash, Aquaman, Shazam 2.
Yeah, just the
And
last vestiges of the rotting corpse that was the DCEU by that point.
exactly. Just we all know that it's changing, and they all
Oh,
buy.
sorry, real briefly. The
Mhm.
other thing with No Way Home that is not indicative of other Marvel movies that turn me off so hard, and I know I'm not alone in it, is the really contrived, I think, gimmicky ending with, and really, I know I say this phrase a lot, really typical TV kind of CW thing with everybody forgetting who Spider-Man is by the end of the movie, and the kind of soft reboot thing that they're setting up. I could not hate that whole thing more.
I mean, can we just give a round of applause to the MCU for taking literally the most hated Spider-Man comic in One More Day and turning that into like the most beloved by normie Spider-Man movie?
Yeah. And I was always worried that for some crazy reason they would go to One More Day. And they did.
I don't think I've ever lived in denial as much as I did for No Way Home, where it was like they announced Melina and Fox were coming back, and I was like, okay, but like maybe they're just playing like the MCU version of those characters, like Jameson. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to Spider Verse. They're bringing back Defoe. Okay, maybe the same thing, and like just really holding out hope that that's not where they were going.
Well, and when we got that first trailer, and or maybe it was the second, I forget, but we got the premise baked in to the trailer of like Doctor Strange is going to make everybody forget Spider-Man. I was walking on eggshells after that. I was like, "Oh god. It's No Way Home." I hope to god it's not, but that's what it sounds like.
It's One More Day.
Or sorry, One More Day. Well, they're both
One
three
More
words.
Home should have been the title.
That's what it should have been. One More Home. Also, they had a way home. I guess the title by the end ends up talking about MCU Spider-Man, where he's at home, but he's not really at home because everyone doesn't know who he is. So it's like
You know
like
what
a
it should have been
symbolic
called?
thing.
You know what it should have been called, right?
What?
Spider-Man No Way Home asterisk. When you get to the end of the movie and it's like, but then they do.
Yeah, my prediction for Thunderbolts is that's going to start a whole wave of movies with asterisks.
I hope so.
Or movies with random punctuation at the end of titles for no good reason.
Mm-hmm.
I want that to start a whole trend of question marks. I said this on the Captain Logan show last night. It would be so great if if the new like Empire or Kingdom, where we can't stop using those, or like Darkness for a while is a question mark. So like James Bond?
I want hyphens that don't lead to anything.
Star Wars?
I want hyphens that don't lead to anything. Where it's like Ghostbusters hyphen, and then there's nothing there.
Something after that? Or like colons?
Yeah. Spider-Man hyphen.
What I like about the question mark is if the people making it are just trying to bank on a name, and they don't understand the property, and they don't care about the property at all, then it becomes really appropriate to just give it a question mark. Like everything Star Trek now should have a question mark. Star Trek?
No, you know what needs a question mark is a live action adaptation of Dark Knight Returns.
It's great. It works for everything.
Mm-hmm.
James Gunn's new Superman movie could have been called Superman?
Superman? Asterix?
Dan Schneider, $5 super chat. Taika Waititi is a hack. Austin's hatred and anger is justified. He's the opposite of Gunn. He hates source material as much as Gunn loves it. Yeah, and he's as much as said so.
Yep.
Just
I
like
mean,
just like Kurtzman with Star Trek.
I guess the nice thing is he is open about it just being a paycheck. I guess that's nice.
Yeah, whereas Kurtzman with Star Trek is really kind of like full of himself and thinks he's a great writer. And with him, it's not he doesn't like source material. He doesn't like the idea of continuity, which I can't get my mind around. I don't know what that means.
Or if you go, nerds think of these characters as gods, and they don't want you to kill their god.
Well, that's
Did you see the other one he said like 2 days ago, where he said
he's talking about Snyder right now,
where he said that DC fans are brainwashed into thinking that Batman shouldn't kill. It's like, dude, just let it go.
Yeah, seriously.
Just say like, hey, I had this idea that I thought would be cool. Like, this was my take.
Yeah. Yeah,
Let
just
it
say
go.
you don't always have to go with the source material. I guess it didn't work out as well because a lot of people disagree with me on that. And also, why are we having a decade-old argument still?
It's because nobody's liking Rebel Moon.
Yeah. He's got to blame that on something.
Anyways,
you know why nobody's liking Rebel Moon?
Because Rebel Moon.
Because it looks like he shot it in his living room and he wrote it in his bathroom. That's what it looks like.
Oh, so it's the last 20 minutes of the Snyder Cut.
But 6 hours of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead. I tell you what, we went like 10 minutes over on the clock. I was just gonna let this ride out to 2 hours, but here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start the clock over. We're gonna do our speculation about the future. Think about the future. But we're gonna take a real quick break before we do that.
Okay.
I'll see everybody in just a couple minutes. Okay, hopefully Austin makes it back here in a minute. I haven't seen him yet, so I don't know if he's back at his desk or if he is still finishing up his break. There he is.
Yeah, I was sitting here saying we didn't start the fire.
Oh, you gotta come back in before I start the show again.
I feel like we're still a little bit away.
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
misjudged it.
That's cool. But I've done that before with people, and I'll be sitting here for like 5 minutes. They're waiting for me to start. And I'm like, no, you gotta turn your camera on. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get into the second part of this now. We can kind of segue across. Austin, were there any other big events or movies that we didn't really discuss during that period? We kind of glossed over the Batman.
That is true. We didn't really talk about Doctor Strange either, which is like a movie that made a ton of money, but everybody complains about.
Yeah, except for us. You and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not the Doctor Strange movie I would have wanted, but like I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good.
I was surprised by the backlash with that, and that's a movie that's one of the big movies that to me makes the future with MCU really uncertain. Because I thought that was one of their better movies in the last few years, and I thought that story held together better than some other things, and I thought that it was, kind of stylish and just different. They introduced a new character that I really liked with America Chavez, and they've had a lot of these new younger and most of them female characters that they've been pushing real hard that haven't really grabbed a lot of people's attention and become the new A-listers. And Chavez isn't that yet either, but I thought she could have been. I really liked her, and I feel the same way about Kate Bishop too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
On the TV side. This whole thing gets kind of complicated with MCU too. Let me tack this point on because the TV shows are so intertwined into all of this now, but this is just superhero movie history. So it's important to note that MCU's big strategy post Endgame was start a whole bunch of TV shows with Disney Plus that are basically made like movies, and all the way to they didn't even have showrunners, and basically the whole thing is going to be like I said, completely intertwined. And so if you don't watch those shows, you might see characters in movies that you are not familiar with and haven't seen yet because you're still supposed to look at all of this. And that is more or less backfired on them.
Mm-hmm. No, and a lot of the complaints I heard at the time were like, oh, we didn't do enough with like the multiverse cameo stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm glad that they showed up for 2 minutes and died. I didn't want any of that. that was the way to do it if you were going to do it. Another one I hear people complain about is like just how goofy that movie is. It's a Sam Raimi movie. Yeah.
Well, it also felt. I'm hesitating because I don't know how right I am about this. And like you said, you being a big Doctor Strange fan, you said it's not the Doctor Strange movie you want. At the same time, some of the goofiness of it is more classic Doctor Strange than what had come before.
Yeah, it's really weird where like the first movie is a better adaptation, but like the second movie does some of the like weirder stuff that like I wanted in that first one.
It's like maybe tonally it's closer. In some ways.
In some ways.
Like the spirit of it is more, Ditko.
Yeah, the main thing is like I wish we kept Nightmare as the villain. Like it would have been cool if we had a trilogy of just the three Ditko villains. But like
sure, and I don't have a dog in any of that.
Yeah, when I also think that Wanda's like one of their best villains. I know a lot of people have issues with her characterization. I think she's a lot of fun in that.
Plus, DX says people were offended by the cameos. Yeah, I can't relate to any of that.
Yeah,
like I guess
think Stewart's terrible in that movie. Like I didn't want more of him.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate just because like he's gotten a lot older and he is kind of phoning in performances like that. And I had just spent 2 seasons pull my hair out with Picard, and like that material is terrible, and I don't know what his acting would have been like if the material was better, but I was kind of just seeing him in a wheelchair doing that. But for my money, it was actually kind of besides that, it was actually kind of okay fan service, a lot of it. And I like that it didn't drone on forever and that it was just, this is the section of the movie where we're going to have that. And then move on and tell your story. Like, it didn't get in the way. Like, maybe it was a little too easy and contrived that all those characters get killed in the same in one scene. Like, there's complaints story-wise that I have about that. None of it killed it as an experience. Like, I didn't go in for that. I was part of the issue, Austin, that multiverse is in the title, so people go in wanting the cameo parade thing.
I know a lot of people did. A lot of people had the like everyone's coming back for this movie thing. Chewbacca's lover also says there's too much CGI. It's a Doctor Strange movie. Like a lot of that I can't harp on. And there's too much MCU humor. The first movie I think is way worse when it comes to that.
I agree.
The first movie is I think one of the most blatant MCU joke like ruining moments thing. There's quite a bit of that in the second one. There's also just like a lot of like Sam Raimi like dad jokes in it that aren't exactly that. Like
I forgot to start the timer.
Oh, sorry. There's some of his humor that I can see bleeding through as well, but I also think in terms of the MCU-ness, like it's toned down from the first one, I think.
Yeah, and once again, we don't want to just sit here and review the movies again. Exactly. What I really appreciated about one of the things I really appreciated about Doctor Strange 2 is that it was so impressively salvaged. Because that's like MCU's been having this problem a lot since Endgame, where they've got movies that get worked on up to the 11th hour, get changed way too much in the toward the end of production, and so you get things like No Way Home that are rushed real hard and are totally different projects at the end than what they started as. And Doctor Strange is one of those. And personally, I couldn't tell as well as with some of those others. Like it is so obnoxiously, blatantly apparent in Quantumania.
Mm-hmm. The best scene in that movie is a reshoot, which is the Doctor Strange versus Doctor Strange magic fight. Music fight. Sorry. Like that's
because you've got a real director with a vision that gets to make up something instead of having it all done for him by the time he gets there.
Yeah, and it gets so silly. Like I love when evil Doctor Strange like puts all the notes in the line music and then he throws it forward and it's like the Dracula, the song that everyone associates with Dracula, even though it's not from Dracula.
Yeah, it's just a lot more creative than some of those other movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It has like more style behind the camera than a lot of those do, especially in that period where like you can't tell like who directed most of those movies. Like I don't know.
It maybe doesn't bode well for the future, at least in my opinion, when a movie that I thought was really creative and fun and is more indicative of what I want to see moving forward is kind of lambasted and most people don't like, because what does Kevin Feige, what does MCU do with that information moving forward? Mm-hmm. Now, maybe they'll somehow crack the code. And like, I don't want to think about this like a math problem. I don't want them to crack a code. I want them to make cool movies, and maybe some of them will do really well and some of them won't, but they just let people who have stories they want to tell stories for people like them. That's all I want. But maybe they'll, for their business, because that's what it is, crack the code and make what everybody else wants to see, and it just won't be for me. And then that'll be their ticket back to something akin to the success that they had in the first 3 phases.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And then it just won't be for me anymore. And in some ways it hasn't been for a long time anyway. So like, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hopefully with that, the lesson is, if we bring Sam Raimi back, maybe let him start a movie.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That'd be nice. That'd be cool. But we'll see.
So, Austin, I'll say this to kind of segue us into the future stuff and just sort of cap off this really long history series we've been doing. This is kind of the $100 million question right now. Superhero movies for the last couple of decades have been the big tentpole thing that kind of it has seemed more or less to bring society together. Maybe arguably up until recently, it's been a big percentage of Hollywood's take. Even movies that are not based on superheroes and comics, like big popcorn things, big blockbusters, have felt like superhero movies. It's turned into the big formula, and for better or worse. The big $100 billion question right now is how far in the rearview mirror is that? And I'm not even saying that it's necessarily a bad thing. Maybe it's time for us to move on a little bit. As much as I love superhero movies, as much as that's the big thing I talk about on the channel, I don't need it to be as mainstream as it's been to keep my interest. And in fact, maybe I'll get more interested when they start making smaller things that don't have to be for everybody. I'm all for it not being as bloated as it has been. So I'll just say that real quick. But how in the rearview mirror is it?
I think we've talked about this. I think where I think we're going is that we won't have just the big money maker thing anymore. Like, I think the audience will just kind of be fractured, for better or worse, where you'll have a lot more like, oh, okay, like some people are really wanting video game adaptations. Some people still want the superhero stuff. Some people want, I don't know, like whatever. Some people really want Godzilla movies. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think we're heading towards that.
Because people keep asking, what is the big thing now? Like, is it video game movies? Like, is it monster things? Maybe yeah, you're right. Maybe there won't be the big thing. Maybe it'll be splintered across the board, and we won't be aiming at $1 billion movies anymore. We'll be happy with $400 or $500 million movies, and we'll make them for 80 to 100 in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's a place that Marvel and DC both have to get to. Like, Blade, I think they said that that's going to have like a 50 million budget, maybe. They said it was going to be lower, maybe it was 100. But like, Blade absolutely should be.
Real
Swamp
quick,
Yeah.
because I don't mean to stop you. I'm sorry, but if that movie comes out and the budget is 50 million, they're lying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
They've
absolutely.
already spent more than that trying to develop it in the first damn place.
The budget's probably like 800 million at this point.
There's no way I'm wrong about that.
No, there's no way you're wrong.
Just
about
throwing that out. But not to throw shade too much, that's the direction they should be going with that. Like, if that's the lesson they had to learn after 32 rewrites and 150 directors coming off of it, more power to them, because maybe they'll figure things out moving. I'm thinking of more movies that we didn't really talk very much about earlier, like Eternals and stuff, but I guess we'll just move on.
Well, Eternals, I can tell you, probably has no future.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I just mean in the post-COVID thing, where that was another movie like with Doctor Strange that I liked and a lot of people didn't, and it was the first. I think that's important to bring up real quick, because I'm jumping around now, but that's the first big sign that maybe Marvel doesn't have the can do no wrong thing anymore.
That was their first bomb, yeah. Well, okay. It's really awkward because like, I want to say the budgets for every movie that year is like not too far off. Like, they're maybe like 50 or so million away from each other. And Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and Eternals all make roughly the same amount of money, and two of them are considered successes and one of them's considered a bomb. So, like, I don't know.
Regardless, it's the reputation that it has.
Exactly, yeah. And a lot of people didn't like it.
That is the place where, like, forgetting the numbers, that is the place where the consumer confidence starts to look like it's, if not buckling, it's wavering a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know I saw Connor earlier in the chat, and he was saying that No Way Home doing super well and Eternals being rejected is why we're where we're at with Marvel. And I wouldn't go that far, because I don't like Eternals as much as Connor does, but No Way Home's popularity in general definitely is part of it.
Yeah, and the mistake there, if we take the success of that and we try to use that as a a formula or a foundation moving forward, is that that's a flash in the pan kind of thing. Like it doesn't last. It's not sustainable. Like I said earlier, the point of that is a big event to kind of celebrate something, and then we all move on. You can't do that forever. That's a fad, and you can say it's a bunch of individual fads. Like Spider-Man has its quick, and maybe they'll come back and do the Spider-Man 4 now, and something else with Garfield. Like, who knows? But if nothing else, especially if nothing else happens, you had that fad for a minute with Spider-Man. Okay, we got that out of our system. Now we're gonna do it with Deadpool 3 this year, Deadpool in Wolverine, with Fox X-Men. We'll get that out of our system. But I think the whole nostalgia, go back to old movies people love and mix them all together, that in and of itself is a fad. That can't last too long either. And so you can't build a foundation on it. I'm not even saying never do it. I think that stuff can be done a lot better than we've done it so far. And Austin, I don't even know if you agree with that. I know that you're in the camp of I'm sick of the novelty of, multiverse and going back and blending those things, but like, we haven't done a great one yet in my mind. Like, there's still, you could do something really cool with X-Men, or even with all the stuff Marvel owns, if you got really creative with it. So like the closest to the great crossover with all that we've had so far is Days of Future Past. We've still never done any better than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you can't build more on top. Like, that can't be your basis.
And I'm not saying I'm desperate to even see a good one. I'm ready to move on from it too. I'm just saying it could, if it's the fad right now, if we have to do it, it could be done better than it's being done.
Yeah, if I have to pick between No Way Home and Eternals, as which way the Marvel universe is going, I'm just walking away from Marvel. Eternals is such a weird movie.
I was going to say, what would, obviously that won't happen because it didn't perform great, and what I don't like about that is that wasn't, for, however you feel about it, we keep saying for better or worse, however you feel about that movie, at least it was a director's vision. At least it
absolutely is.
At least it wasn't built by committee and by a big I shouldn't say faceless, but by a big machine, the way a lot of their other movies are made. But then it didn't do very well, so that kind of tells them, we've got to go back to the assembly line way of making things.
Eternals is weird in that way too, because it is very much like a director's vision, especially in how it's shot. But I also think it's still too reined in by the MCU. Like, there's still too much of that overall spirit bleeding into it. Even on a first viewing, I had that. That's a movie where I go back and forth every time, and now I'm really scared to rewatch it because I've read Kirby's Eternals, and that movie does not get Kirby's Eternals in any way. So, I'm really worried to rewatch it.
You're afraid it'll be like a Suicide Squad thing.
Yeah,
going back to
now
it.
I'm gonna rewatch it and be like, well, this sucks. We could have had a movie that I really loved out of this material.
Plushy DX just says Deadpool 3 with a question mark, and I'm sure he means maybe that will be the one of the blending old movies thing that is great. I hope so. I don't have a great deal of confidence that it will be that. I'm hoping that it'll be more clever and creative with it and make more sense than No Way Home did. That first trailer didn't inspire a ton of confidence with me, because I'm not excited about the, whatever they're called, the time police thing from
the TVA.
Yeah, that whole thing from Loki. I'm a little disheartened that that's the direction they're going with that, but we'll see. I don't want to make too many assumptions based on a trailer, as I always say, but yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see here in a couple months when that comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that will become the present, and then it'll be history.
Exactly. And then in part 14, which is the next part after this, we'll talk about that. But anyways, I feel like with Deadpool 3, it's more likely to win you over than it is me. Like, that movie's a complete watch for me. But
Well, that's the thing is you don't like that franchise in the first place.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And I
So,
do.
There is a chance it can win you over.
I'm the biggest Deadpool fan on the channel, and that's not saying anything. It cracks me up so much. So I'm the big Deadpool fan in that I have liked Deadpool before.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else we work with can't say that. Or at least, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. Dan hates Deadpool. Austin hates Deadpool. Everybody hates Deadpool. I look like the ginormous Deadpool fan because I don't flat out hate the character.
You love everything about Deadpool.
That's not true.
I broke into your house the other day and I found an unmade Deadpool script that you wrote. Deadpool kills all the American presidents was the title. So it's really weird, but okay.
I'm so not really a Deadpool fan that I actually own New Mutants 97, and I think about selling it all the time. Just because it's valuable and there's other things maybe I'd rather have.
It's a Liefeld book. Are you really going to read it?
Well, no, it's not about if I'm going to read it. It's about just having like a major key issue that's worth that much.
Even then.
Because I am a comic collector. And also, sorry, this has nothing to do with anything. We need to get back to the purpose of this stream. But I'll just mention this real quickly. Part of the reason that I've had a hard time giving it up is because the way I got it was really neat. Because I used to buy and sell comics, and I got it in a big collection, and I had it for years and had no idea I had it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, my wife was... I forget why my wife was going through some stuff that... I think I was selling in a booth, and I was thinking about selling some stuff that I had bought in a collection that I just hadn't gone through in a long time, and that was in there. And she messages me while I'm working at the flea market booth I had at that point. She goes, "Did you know you have a copy of New Mutants 97?" And I was like, "Holy crap! No, I didn't." So
holy crap, Sarah!
It's hard to give that up just because it was kind of neat that it popped up like that.
Yeah, no kidding. Just right in the middle of something. For all you know, there could have been a like Amazing Fantasy, 15 or something.
No, definitely not. Nothing in that particular collection went before.
Comics #1.
Yeah, nothing in that collection went before like 1991. But anyway, moving forward, which is the point. Literally, moving forward.
Yeah, with Deadpool 3, because they did the CinemaCon footage, and I was reading kind of descriptions about that, and I was like, I don't know, like I feel like they're making some counterintuitive choices, but we'll see.
Yeah, I do too. Bob the $110 super chat. Thanks, man. I'm more for the crossover stuff, but it's more that we're back to this conversation again, but it's more that I don't respect MCU than I think it's a great idea. There will at least be something I enjoy watching in movies that would have been bad stories anyway.
So, like, just so I understand this better, so it's like, you're more okay with an MCU crossover movie if, say, like Hugh Jackman Wolverine shows up because you like Hugh Jackman Wolverine. Like, that's what you mean?
That's what it sounds like. He's saying that, like,
I just don't have that. So
he's saying, of course, No Way. What it sounds like, I don't mean to put words in his mouth, but what it sounds like he's saying is, of course, No Way Home had a not very good story because MCU usually doesn't have good stories. So the only thing that's there for him is the novelty. So he just embraces the novelty. And I just respectfully disagree with the idea, the end of that, where he says that would have been bad stories anyway. There's no reason to assume, in my opinion, that the third MCU Spider-Man movie would have been just as bad of a story because of all the points I made earlier, that it was like rushed so hard that it was working backwards from that novelty idea, and they had a different story they were developing. With Kraven, I can't remember now.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was like a Kraven hunting story. We would have continued to have like one villain that was probably really good instead of 5 villains that are all bad and now wasted. But it was Willem Dafoe, so are you happy?
Yeah, like I have disliked yeah, I mean, not to be condescending or anything, Austin,
rude, yeah.
because I understand that side. I don't I don't share that at this point in my life. Some of it is I've just been with this stuff for so long that like some of it is the perspective of like I do this kind of for my job, and I don't mean to say that it's all work and that I don't enjoy it anymore, but it's just some of those novelties I'm real over now. Like some of that stuff I've had those fanboy moments where I've been there and I've been really excited about things, and they kind of let me down. Not always, but like I already went through this with CW Crisis.
Mhm.
And I got really excited about some of the actors and characters that they were bringing in from that stuff that I never thought I would see again. Like they had, Robert Wolf from Batman '89 with Knox, and they had Burt Ward from '60s Batman, and they had Huntress from Birds of Prey, a show that only I care about. Literally, I'm the only person on the planet that cares about that.
You got
And
Kevin Conroy?
and yeah, and so like I kind of excited about the novelty of that. I'm not gonna lie, and I got my hopes up on it, and it really let me down. So I already had that experience,
Mhm.
um, and so it's hard to get excited about it, but it's also hard to get as upset about it when it doesn't work. Also, do you see what
I
I'm
think,
saying? I
yeah,
get real neutral about it.
I think for me, like, I'm just when it comes to movies and stuff, I'm just not a very nostalgic person. So like, I don't care about seeing any of these characters again. They're done. Like we did that. I want to see what the new interpretations of them are, especially because with Green Goblin, I don't think he's been adapted well outside of Spectacular. And with Doc Ock, at least in the live action movie, like that's a very different take on Doc Ock. I want to see comic book Doc Ock. And the answer I got was, well, we don't have an idea. So like
And
I'm stuck here going, well, that's
every
annoying.
time they go back to formula, so to speak, or they go back and they bring in the things that have worked before, it's another missed opportunity for you to get the definitive version of it.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I could have had like a really cool Green Goblin or Doc Ock. I don't know.
They waste that every time they go back to the well.
And don't tell me, well, it would have sucked anyways. I don't know. We don't know. We don't know what their take would have been. Instead, we got nothing. It's the same thing with Jameson. Like I've always been frustrated that they just brought back J.K. Simmons and had no take except, well, he's Alex Jones now.
Yeah,
I learned recently too he had to fight to have the mustache. Like they didn't want to have that.
that's so weird.
That's so bizarre. I saw an interview with him where he said that.
Yeah, and like I'm respectful of people that have the opposite feeling of that, where they're because keep in mind, Austin, that for a lot of people, I the screen version they grew up with is the version of that character for them, right? So like
Yeah.
there's a whole generation of people for whom like 89 Batman is their Batman, and they didn't grow up reading Batman comics, and that's the reason they care about Batman. So when Michael Keaton comes back in The Flash and he's Batman, I mean, the numbers didn't bear that out. Apparently nobody in their 50s went and saw that movie. But ostensibly anyway, it's a big deal because you get to see it happen one more time, and I hear that a lot. Where it's like, but I just want to see that actor come back and play it one more time. And if you're, so I'm somewhere in between, and I don't mean to be a fence sitter, but I'm somewhere in between Austin and the super nostalgia high crowd that's like at all of their favorite thing. I have to see the actor come back and play it one more time. Where I I I am more nostalgic for some of this stuff than Austin is. So like when Days of Future Past happened and we were gonna have, and Austin and I just talked about that on the Rewind commentaries. I when we were gonna have McAvoy and Patrick Stewart like in that movie playing Professor X together, that was a really really big deal for me. But at the same time, like I said, I've been burned enough with some of this stuff, and I just don't really feel like I don't have that thing where I have to see all these actors come back and play it one more time, because that's it's like having a bad aftertaste. It's like that's the taste that's left in your mouth if it's bad,
Hmm.
and that's what I don't
Well,
like about it. It's like you probably wish that the last time you saw Harrison Ford play Indiana Jones was not in the worst Indiana Jones movie. You didn't need to see him
The
come back and
last
play it.
two were in the worst.
Yeah, you didn't
Yeah.
need to see him come back and do it one more time. It would have been nice if you had been left with a good last movie.
Well, and I think now you
That's
say
my
that,
feeling on it.
a perfect example of this, Cap, is Days of Future Past versus something like a Keaton, where to me, like, I don't need Keaton or Maguire to come back, but the only way that I think it would be interesting is if you brought back those directors, because it's not just those actors, it's also the vision. Like, it's and with the Flash, like, Keaton's Batman does not fit into that movie. Like, he feels so, like, aesthetically wrong, like when he's running around in the climax of that film.
Yeah,
And
he's not from that universe, but we pretend like he is.
Maguire's got a little bit of that with No Way Home, where it's like you can tell Raimi's not directing it because there's a lack of style in the direction. When X-Men did it, you did bring back Singer,
Yeah.
and that's the one that people like the most. Like, it's also the vision of it too.
But that's
is
a
important.
but that's a big risk because you do it decades later. Like it helped that with Singer, it wasn't that long after.
Yes.
Like it was a decade. It wasn't 3 decades. Your director is not necessarily, and all the actors, not necessarily going to be the same people they were the last time they made it. So it is still a big risk to come back and do it one more time. That's not where I thought you were going to go with that. I thought you were going to say maybe it's more interesting to see the actor come back, but not necessarily play the same version. Because I always
do that too. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
always wanted to see that with Adam West before he died. I always wanted to see him come back and do an old grizzled Bruce Wayne that's like the opposite of 60s Batman, just to show his range and his chops and to say like he was the first live action Batman and it's still great even though it was campy, and that's like he was still a great casting choice for a serious Bruce Wayne. Wouldn't it be cool if he got to play that? I actually wouldn't want that in the same universe. I think he would have been wonderful for Dark Knight Returns. And like I stand by that. I've always said that.
Well, yeah, and I'm just talking about like bringing those specific characters back. Like,
Yeah.
obviously with Keaton,
No, but that's still really relevant to what I said a minute ago because the argument that I was making is a lot of people. I keep hearing this. I want to see the actor play it one more time. Isn't it maybe more interesting if they come back and do a different take because they're different people now? That's what I'm saying. I don't need to see you come back and try to do exactly the same thing.
But I think when people say that, they do want the exact same thing. I don't think it's like I want to see Keaton.
But they need to think about it because there might be something.
They need to think about the future.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that would be easier with Keaton just because Batman versus Spider-Man. Just in terms of what those properties are, I think it's easier to switch it up with Batman. But yeah.
I don't even know what you would do with Maguire. I don't know that it works with every, actor.
It's the Spider-Man Reigns movie after Logan. People really wanted that for some reason.
We have turned this into a GNN about nostalgia, as opposed to.
But that is a big part of this future question because that is very much where we are with this stuff.
How long does it take before we get away from that? And does that add fuel to the fire that superheroes are kind of done? Where once you get, I'm just playing devil's advocate with this. Once you get to a place where you're like chasing your own tail and it's all about the history of it. They're doing what we're doing now. It's about like look how long we've been doing this. There's all these old things that are fun to bring back again. That kind of screams to people that are not into that. You're out of ideas. And so does that add fuel for that fire of, superhero fatigue is real and all of that? It's kind of akin to self-parody. Like those are the two places to go where you start looking like you're completely out of ideas.
Yeah, and that's where I'm hoping that DC can kind of pull some good stuff out of this where they're just going, back to the well as opposed to just, here's Christopher Reeve CGI'd again.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Again, I think it's going to be a fad that will be stuck in for a while, and the big question is going to be once we get over it. And let me say this first: we get over it in two possible ways. One is we put out, just like with anything, we put out a couple of them, like the Flash, really, that don't succeed the way we thought we would, and then we have to start trying something different, whether it's original or not. Or, barring AI, if we start going into that place, everybody you want to see come back is dead.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other way it ends.
Yo. Then we'll just bring back the newer people.
Well, that's true. That could become a vicious cycle as well.
Exactly.
Because are we going to get into this place with the MCU? I think the answer is yes to some degree, where it's like, well, you didn't think Downey was ever going to come back as Iron Man, but here he is one more time. When we do Secret Wars, that's almost certainly going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, get ready in 5 years when we get the big nostalgic return of Pattinson's Batman.
That'll just be because we finally got a sequel.
Exactly.
That's so good.
We're going to have a 50-year-old Batman in his second year.
It's just called The Batman Returns. You get 2, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next one will be The Batman Forever. But it won't have Pattinson.
And then you get The Batman and Robin.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the soft reboot is The Batman Begins.
The Batman Begins, yeah.
That's great.
And then the one after that is the Dark Knight.
And then later you get The Batman versus Superman.
Versus the Superman.
It's not even it's just Superman.
Oh, just Superman.
Asterix.
Yeah.
Chewbacca's Lover, $5 super chat. A lot of us are no longer excited to see the MCU's take on certain characters. We were at one point, but a lot of us dread it now. I mean, when you say certain characters, I'm in a place where I feel like there's just not a lot left that I even need to see adapted except FF and X-Men.
Yeah, and I also don't think the two choices are MCU character or bring back old Marvel character. Like, I can wish for a different thing. I can wish for some sort of reboot.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not stuck between these two things, or these are the only things I can accept them doing.
Yeah. No, I love the way you put that. I mean, it's pretty clear, we've talked about this a lot, that a soft reboot is on the horizon. If they weren't gonna use Secret Wars for that, they got it now. Like, there's just nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They desperately need the characters people still care about, and they just don't have them. And that's not to say that they can't like mix it in with a diverse assortment of other characters that they weren't using before, or that they can't reboot some characters they've tried and kind of failed at. You know what I mean? Like, give us another Moon Knight. You tried it once, didn't really work for people. There's no reason you can't try it again.
Well, and another big thing, just off this, like, yeah, I don't have a ton of faith in the MCU either, but like, I would take a new Fantastic Four over bringing back any of those other casts. I'll be throwing popcorn if any of them show up in a new movie.
Yeah, I mean, you get booed off the stage.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, who's going to be excited about that? Where it's like, oh, look, Jessica Alba came back.
Look, her nose is bleeding. Remember when it bled in the first movie?
we bring back Ian Gruffer, whatever his name is, and
he shows up for 1 second and
just so that he can make the Wolverine face that he didn't get to make.
The same thing.
Let me finish my sentence. That's what I was trying to say.
And then he's just Hugh Jackman for the rest of the movie.
I'm waiting for. Has that happened yet? I'm waiting for the big screen, like, nostalgic reference to a deleted scene. I guess you kind of get it in Flash with...
You get it in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Oh, well, and then they have to show you the scene.
They have to show you the deleted scenes. Yeah.
That was embarrassing. But I was going to say, the closest thing that I can think of to it in superhero stuff is just Superman Lives. That's a reference to an unmade movie.
Yeah, and that was super awkward.
Yeah. How many people in the theater even knew why they were looking at that? Yeah.
And then you have me, and I'm like, I know what that is, but like, I don't care.
Yeah, like
You didn't even make him fight the cool spider that was supposed to be in that movie.
well, that's the thing. Like for those of us that were in the know, it felt like the most obvious way to do it. And so I had this weird conflicting thing where, on the one hand, I was like, not enough people are going to understand what they're even looking at. And then on the other hand, I was like, this is so obvious.
And then Nicolas Cage cried when he watched it.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
Well, the weirdest thing was when it came out that that wasn't fully CG and he actually was there.
Well, yeah,
and
that's
just
like the big
stood
thing.
there.
Yeah, it's like the big thing is that he's been like really like that sucked. Like I came in and filmed the scene that's not what is in that movie. He's like, I watched that movie and I'm fighting a giant spider in like some sort of weird AI scene.
Yeah. Yeah, it was supposed to just be him watching like the destruction of the universe or something. Like
Yeah,
looking on.
like,
That's all it
he's
was.
like, I gave a good performance of looking at it. They didn't use it.
Instead, it's a CG me fighting a giant spider.
And I was pissed.
Claudio Moran, $2 Canadian. Thank you. If Raimi Spider-Man 4 happens, it should just be Spider-Girl. I don't agree with that. I mean, I'd just make a Spider-Girl movie. I mean, I guess what... Okay, I guess I can kind of see that. I guess what he's saying is...
that's in the same line as like the people who want Keaton back for like a Batman Beyond, where it's like instead of doing them because they're a little too old, like you just do the passing of the torch thing. Who would you cast as Maguire's Spider Girl? That's my question.
Chloe Grace Moretz.
Chloe Grace Moretz. She's like 40 now.
I get well, yeah, she could be a 40-year-old Spider Girl, and then I don't know. I guess he's not quite 60, so that might be sort of awkward.
No, Chloe Grace Moretz will be Black Cat in the MCU in the next Spider-Man movie.
There's no way she's 40.
No, she's the same age as me.
I was gonna say she's got to be younger than me.
Yeah.
She played Hit Girl in 2010.
No, she's the same age as I am.
No, it took me a second to figure out what exactly he meant by that. Yeah, so he's saying like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is like passing the torch to a Spider-Girl.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that would be okay. I don't know if the problem with that is anytime we do something like that, if it's successful, we turn it into a franchise. So if we could make that a singular movie, I'd be more okay with it. But I don't really need Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man universe to keep going with another character. I don't really love that.
It should just be Spider-Man Reign, and he has a daughter, and they go on a road trip together, and then Tobey dies at the end.
See, I'm a hypocrite because Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is actually a thing that I would not mind coming back and doing one more of now, just because I personally liked his performance in No Way Home and was surprised that I did, and it would be fascinating to see Sam Raimi do it. Like that's a really specific kind of outside example for me now, because that happened and then Sam Raimi made Doctor Strange and I liked it, and so now I'm like, I'm more interested in that than I was before.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a tier list of things where I'm like, as a Raimi fan, this is what I'd be interested in him doing. And Spider-Man 4 is probably like near the bottom, but like if he wants to do it, like then sure, I'll see it because I like Raimi. But
I know Raimi wouldn't care about this because he didn't care about Venom in the first place, but you know, make Carnage because that hasn't been done yet.
I mean, I wouldn't want that unless it's something similar to his version of Venom that got cut out of Spider-Man 3 because it's genuinely cool, and now I'm angry with Sony.
Well, that's because me and you have really different priorities when it comes to Spider-Man, and I'm a big symbiote guy, and I cannot deal with what happened with Carnage.
No, for sure.
In that movie that never got made. Bob the Hun, $5 super chat. I agree with you about crossover, about not being that creative or inspired. My problem is that they all feel that way to me.
Yeah, and I just don't have the like one or the other. Like I just want like something that's different. I don't know. I don't care about any of that. But I feel like we're going in circles.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But thanks for the super chat. Tobin Bell Poens 499 super chat. Zoe Kravitz, gotta be one of my all-time favorite Spider Girls. Shut up. Also, you totally just said Tobin Maguire. Tobin Maguire. I ran my words together.
I'll give Toby this.
It's late. I'm slurring my speech now.
I rewatched No Way Home like 5 days ago.
Did you really?
Yeah.
What is your report, sir?
Yeah, it's not very good, but I'll give Toby. I laughed once during the movie, and it was one of his lines, and I was like, that's good. It's when he comes through the portal, and he's like, yeah, this portal's to open up, and oh, it's gone. There's something about the way he said it made me laugh, but
yeah, I really liked him in that.
Yeah, I think he's fine. I think they do a good job of capturing like all three. So when you watch, and like they're all just kind of, or the other two are just kind of they're doing their thing. But I think they capture it in a way that if you really like Toby, you'll walk out saying Toby was really good, and if you really like Garfield, you'll say that he was really good. I think that's probably the best thing they do with both of those other two Spider-Men.
Yeah, Bob the Hunt, $2 super chat. Don't mean to be so doomer. Excited for Guns DC. Yeah. Is that a term now? Is that a thing people are saying? Is that what all the kids are saying now? I'm a doomer.
I think so. Yeah, that's like the black pill thing.
Oh, okay. No, that's all right. I mean, I'm down on some of the stuff myself, but I can still expect some, or I can still like try to hold my standards where I'm hoping for decent stories. And Marvel, in my opinion, has proven in at least a couple of cases in the last few years that they still occasionally have that in them. And again, I don't want to talk in circles, but just to finish this up, since he keeps bringing up super chat or putting super chats in about it, which I appreciate, but we've got to move on. I still think that you can do both. We just haven't seen it much.
Yeah,
where you do the gimmick of bring all these characters from different franchises together, but you tell a cool story with it. And part of the reason I say that is because the Crisis thing has worked to varying degrees in DC events. And so I mean in comics, like there's a lot of precedent in comics for cool, crazy, out there crossovers. There's no reason we can't do a clever one in big movies. Like you and I years ago reviewed, this is neither here nor there, but we reviewed the Simpsons Futurama crossover in comics. You've never seen anything like that. I mean, like Turtles Forever is the closest thing, and it's great, but like we've done it in animation to some degree. We've done it in comics really well. There's no reason you can't do it in live action. We just haven't done it yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and I think we both said we'd like to see that adapted in some way. As like either a crossover in the shows or like some sort of like little mini series thing. Because that was a really fun crossover, and the actual one in the show sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go as far as to say it is as great as that book is. I forget what exactly it's called, but it's the Futurama Simpsons crossover. Since they have the precedent for that with that terrible episode on TV, since you never made a Simpsons 2, just do that. Just do a big screen, like
do that as the movie.
Do that as the movie. Why not? You could do really pretty animation.
Absolutely, that'd be great.
It would give you real estate to do lots of cool like visual references and things. You could do an hour and a half, 2-hour movie that's just that.
Especially if you're worried about doing another Simpsons movie. I don't know if they are, but like I know there was talk that they were waiting to see how well that Bob's Burgers movie did, and I think that bombed. So like I don't know if there's maybe some trepidation on that, but like I feel like if you did what you're talking about, you would have at least like 2 show fan bases that you can build off of, and there's definitely interlap between them.
No, that's a great point.
Especially because Futurama just had a revival. It's not good, but
it
was brought back. So I'm sure there's people who like it. I also don't like the Comedy Central revival, and a lot of people like that. So take that for what it's worth.
Sure. I Before we get to Dan Schneider's super chat, let me
Yes.
get back to Bob the Hun because he said excited for Guns DC, and we need to talk about that with the future of all of this. Like I said, we could have just made this last hour a big question mark. The big three questions, I guess, that I had that I think we need to answer, and we talked about the first thing is how in the rearview mirror are superhero movies. I think Austin is right. I think that they will certainly continue. There will still be a base. It will probably never be what it was with the MCU, and we seem to both be in agreement. That's okay.
Mhm.
The next question is, how many more, like, are we going to get to a place where we're doing a lot more experimental, singular, one-off things where we're just throwing stuff at the wall and trying stuff? Or is it going to continue to be about the shared universe thing and everything is in continuity? After all, Gunn, just like with MCU, is building a continuity, but he also wants to make Elseworlds, singular one-off things or other franchises that aren't set in that continuity. Will we see more of that moving forward as the MCU is not what it was?
Probably one, I think, even just with the shared universe thing, and it's so like up in the air, right? Because we don't have any of it, so it's hard to say yet how Gunn will be as a producer on all of that. But at least with just how he's talking about it, like I do believe that we'll probably get more variation in terms of what those movies look like. Like I don't know that they'll have a house style, which makes me happy.
I don't think they should.
No, I don't think so either. And that's
DC at
what he
its
said, and I hope
best never
it's true.
has.
Yeah.
When it's not good is when it attempts the house style.
Mhm.
Uh, that's not the only reason that when DC is not good in comics, it's not good. But like we've had periods where they try to be more uniform, and whenever DC tries to be too Marvel, they don't. It doesn't tend to work out great. Um,
Yeah, and I think just based on what he's announced, like when you have, Superman and Supergirl and then like the Authority or like Swamp Thing or whatever, that tells me that he gets that.
yeah, and it's something for everybody.
It's something for everybody, yeah. And I think that's where we should be. Like
And you
it
can tell
shouldn't
it's
be.
directors first, like he's handing people projects or they're pitching him things.
And writers, there was the thing recently where people were like, "Hey, what about the Authority? Like, Supergirl's moving way faster than that is." And he was like, "Yeah, like the script's not ready yet. Like, we're not going into production on anything until the scripts are ready," which is what he said in the first place. But the fact that we've already started to see the slate start to slide and move around based on that is also a good sign.
And I'm sure that has some people going, "Oh, he doesn't know what he's doing," or like they're already having to change things. But if it's because they're not doing the kind of machine that Marvel has, and they're letting creators make the things they're making, and they're not forcing them real hard on deadlines, you're going to end up with better movies. Like
Yeah.
even if they put out things that I don't want or I don't care about or they're not for me, they're not going to have that same problem. We have to get them out by a certain date. They have to we're halfway into production and then some big wig goes, I don't like the direction this is going, so now we got to reshoot a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and this is rumor territory, but like there was talk that DC's planning to make like a Korean revenge film Huntress movie. Like that's so out of nowhere, but like yeah, hell
Yeah,
yeah. That
absolutely.
sounds cool. Yeah.
No, it does. I'm all for that.
Like yeah, just make cool things. Like and that doesn't have to be a, $100 million budgeted movie. Like,
No, make
you
it with
know.
30.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I think some of that stuff uh, makes me hopeful. Like already, I like Gunn's work, but just everything that he said so far has been right. So just makes me hopeful. But we'll see.
Yeah, and there's plenty of naysayers, and I think somewhat understandably so,
Of
that
course, yeah.
hopefully we'll get one over. I don't think it's fair, if you like really like gun stuff or like you hate where the DCEU was going, that now that somebody that seems competent is taking it over, that you're yeah, I'm just talking about people in general, not just you, Austin, but
Well, and Gunn's
the,
also a proven writer and director, but not producer, which is the
sure.
other thing.
But what I was gonna say is like I just because you like the guy and you're pretty sure that he knows what he's doing, there's a lot of people that you know have like maybe seen the Guardians movies and don't know much else about like who he is and his style and stuff. Like Gunn, in some ways is really public and in some ways he isn't. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So it's pretty easy for people to have no idea, like, who he is and and what they're dealing with, which is good. Like, he's more high profile than you've ever had for, like, a lack of a better word, like a showrunner or something, or like a producer of those movies, at least at the start, right? Like, Kevin Feige got to that place. Everybody knows what his name is now.
Hmm.
But there are a lot of people that don't really know him, and I think that's probably a good thing. And they don't have any faith in Warner Brothers or DC. You've got the few people that are probably upset that DCEU is over for whatever reason, but the majority of people are just like, that whole thing is a train wreck. And when I think DC, I think trash fire.
Hmm.
And so they're not going to
Yeah, that's
trust
the biggest
anything it
hurdle.
does until they get a movie.
That's the
So
biggest hurdle they have is just like, oh, I don't really like DC because I've watched these movies and they're not great.
yeah, so I mean, if you just look at the dark corners of the internet, it's gonna look like the whole universe or a lot of the universe is against Gunn and the new DCEU, and it's not gonna work out. The Twitter X whatever is not the world, and if you get off the internet and you just talk to people, I think a lot more of it is just a big question mark. It's just like I have no idea what the future holds.
Yeah, and I've always seen it as like the Batman thing. Where, like the Batman was announced and Pattinson got the role, and people were like, I don't know about that. And there was a lot of like clickbaity, like, oh, Matt Reeves and Pattinson are fighting on set, which we had recently with Gunn and Corrin Sweat.
Yeah, you would
And
have the if you believed everything the internet said, you would think that movie had massive behind the scenes turmoil and was falling apart.
and then the trailer hit, and all of that quit. And I feel
Yep.
like if they cut the right trailer for Superman, it'll have the same thing. But obviously, to a lesser degree, because you'll still have people that are like really staunch Cavill fans. But I think you'll mostly hear that kind of die out.
Yeah, these things are so high profile, especially when you get into your Batmans and Supermans, that
Mhm.
if it's of a quality, even if there is a contingent of the fan base that doesn't care for it, that'll carry it through, and like everything else around it will just be noise and it won't matter. This is this was a history series. We can bring it back to history now.
Mhm.
This is the history of Batman. I mean, you go all
It
the way
is,
back
yeah.
to '89, and that's what you have with Keaton. Oh, Mr. Mom can't be Batman. This is going to be awful.
I can't talk. Brokeback Mountain can't be Joker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then people
Affleck
were,
had it too.
and then people thought Leto was a good choice for Joker, and then it was terrible.
Yeah, that's the key with Batman. If people are like, "Oh, that's a good choice,"
It's probably gonna suck. Yeah.
yeah. So who are we casting as Batman and Brave and the Bold Cap?
Oh, I don't want to do the fan casting thing. I really don't. I'm gonna be all cop out and hope it's somebody I haven't heard of. Like Corrin Sweat. I don't know him.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that I don't.
Oh, and he's been like completely like avoided all paparazzi. Like it's crazy how that guy who got Superman and then went completely underground.
Yeah, you have to, right?
Yeah, and they're also like really weird about things where like every time he shows up in pictures and stuff, he's wearing a hat. And it's like they're really they're really hiding stuff. He's
Yeah.
got the mullet; it's folded into his hat.
Again, as down as some of, if not a lot of the internet kind of seems to be about Gunn and Superman and all of that, I think that's going to be a massively high profile thing.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that'll probably do like 700 million. Um, Is that like be pretty solid?
I don't think I can throw a number out until I have any sense of what exactly they're making, but I will say, just with like how not popular ultimately Snyder's take was and how desperate I think like a lot of hardcore fans of this stuff are to see a more definitive Superman on screen, which we have not had in like 40 years
No, the last good
for a lot
Superman
of us.
movie
Look, I
was
get people
Superman
like
4.
Cavill, but that take was wrong.
Yeah, no, the last good Superman movie was Superman 4, and I will die on that hill.
But what I was going to say is, given that, if that movie comes out and it's like really, really well liked, and it won't have a big dip the second weekend, I think that has a chance at $1 billion.
It's hard to say, because I just kind of look at the Batman and I'm like, it'll probably do about that, that's about like 700 million. But also,
This seems like a
really
bigger
good
deal.
Superman. Well, that's what I was going to say. Superman, if they go more traditional, has a broader appeal, oddly enough. Whereas that's like a 3-hour detective movie.
In comparing those, it's kind of apples and oranges when you look at the history of it, because we've had a decently like a fairly good track record for Batman on film.
Mm-hmm.
People aren't craving that as hard because we've had it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you and I might have been, because there's a more definitive comic book version that was still to be tapped. We hadn't had Detective Batman, but you look at the success of Begins and Dark Knight. Well, I guess that whole trilogy, and the world has gotten their perfect Batman movies.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't, but like the world has had that already. That's not happened with Superman since 1978.
No, and you're completely right about that. And we talked about this obviously in the history stuff, but like Returns, I think did so much damage to Superman's image and being boring to the public.
And then Snyder kind of damaged it in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, but the other aspect of this you got to keep in mind is the Batman was the start of a Batman franchise, and that's it. There will be so much curiosity just in restarting the whole thing because the last one was such a failure that I don't want to underestimate the potential for box office if that does well. Like if people like it, because if opening weekend the word of mouth is good, how many people go, well, I know they're making more movies after this, I guess I have to see it. Like, I think it's different than the Batman in that way. There's no other stakes after that. It's just that franchise.
Yeah.
It needs to not be 3 hours. I think it's actually essential that movie doesn't go past 2:15.
Yeah. I can see that.
I don't know if Snyder will be smart enough I don't know if Gunn will be smart enough to do it that way. I say smart enough. Like, if the movie is brilliant, perhaps it won't matter. But I think it would be really smart to set that up where you can do more showings in a day.
For sure. And if it does really well, and this is more accidental, as I said, the kind of changing of the slate thing. But Supergirl being the next movie could also be really good if Superman does that well.
That could be a 1-2 punch, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
incidentally, that's actually the one I'm kind of more excited about.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see who directs that. Like, there's been talk recently about the guy who did I, Tonya, and I think that'd be interesting. But we'll see.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Yeah, well, he's done like a few Disney things. Like, he did the Cruella movie, which
I didn't bother with.
Disney remake stuff. Like, they don't let any of those people do anything. But I, Tonya's a great movie.
I never saw that, but I heard good things.
Yeah, that's what Birds of Prey really wants to be. Go watch that movie and you'll be like, oh, this is Birds of Prey. This is what they're trying.
Okay. Let me segue to this because we were talking about the Batman just now. Dan Schneider, $2 super chat. The Batman sequel, thoughts on it? We don't want to launch into a whole other speculation cast, but just real briefly, Austin, remind me
what we've done one on the Batman as well.
Yeah, but I don't want to watch another one. But remind me what the basic stuff that we know so far.
I feel like almost nothing.
I was gonna say, like, we don't even have confirmation on a villain or anything, right?
No, which is one of my big things where I'm more excited for Superman just because I feel like at this point I don't know enough about the Batman too, where it's like I think about that and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get more of that, so it'll be really great. But like I also want to know what villain they're doing and stuff so I can have like more thoughts about it.
Let me suggest that if Penguin is good, you'll just automatically be more excited about a sequel to that movie, though, regardless of who's in it.
I'm so excited for the Penguin show, and I never thought I would be excited for a Penguin TV show.
Me neither, although there are a couple of really cool, like, gritty Penguin miniseries in comics, and I never thought, based on that, oh, that's like a a clear place to go in doing like a gritty crime drama series, but like, yes, of course.
Yeah, when I think for me, it's just Penguin's one of those Batman villains where, like, he's obviously like up there in terms of just how big he is. Like, he should be there, but like, he's not one of my favorite Batman villains. So it's
No,
like, eh.
me either, but like I love Penguin and No Man's Land and stuff like that, where you get
Sure, yeah.
like the version they're doing is so much closer to the comic Penguin I like than I ever thought we'd get, that it's almost like turning me into a Penguin fan. Like I never cared about Penguin, but now it's like, oh, but I've got the comic one that I always found kind of interesting. I just never thought of myself as a big fan of it. And
Well,
now,
Colin Farrell's
with
great.
one of my favorite actors of all time. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. And how cool is it that I mean, I don't want to say bookending his career because like he's not dying, but how but how cool is it?
Cap's gonna kill Colin Farrell to make sure it We also didn't start with Daredevil.
Well, I was gonna say, but one of his early big roles is Daredevil, and now he's swung back around and he's doing Penguin. Everybody loves that, and I know Daredevil's not like a huge popular movie, but like it did well enough at the time that it got the Electro spinoff and all of that, and he was the standout that everybody talked about with that. This is not even here nor there, but isn't it really sad that he has that history and with two villains, and then Affleck has Daredevil and Batman, and they were both like humiliating for him.
Absolutely.
And with one of them the same movie, and both the same two franchises.
Just wait for Secret Wars to bring back Affleck, and then it's another humiliation.
These things always come in threes.
Exactly.
Bob the Hun, $2 super chat. Authority should be directed by Matthew Vaughn.
That's who I always wanted. It sounds like it probably won't be. And a lot of people are really down on Vaughn, which I don't have. But
why is that?
I think just because he kept making spy movies and people were like less and less impressed by them.
See, I'm not down on him over that. I'm just ready to see him do a different thing.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of that. Like I do,
because I don't care about that kind of movie anyway. So like I saw the first Kingsman. It's fine. I don't care about any more of that.
When I love the first Kingsman, I think the second one's pretty good, but it's a step down. And I think the third one's quite good. And then I'm like the only person on the planet that thinks his newest movie's pretty fun. But
interesting. Well, we are at an hour. So the other, let me say this real quick before we finish. The other big question I had, and we've kind of answered it, but I guess I should just cap this off. And I guess it's kind of questions 3 and 4, but it's how popular moving forward, or how successful, I should say, will the two big shared universes be? Like, will the DCU find its footing very quickly and bring in a base? And maybe, like you said, it won't even matter if it has a base because the individual movies will have different audiences, and that could be really good. But, like, will it be able to resolve the issues that the DCEU had? Like will second time be the charm? And then with MCU, can they turn it back around and find a decent percentage of the success they used to have?
So, as a comic book fan, my answer to both is that I hope so. Whether they do or not, I don't know. I have more faith in DC, as we've kind of talked about.
Yeah, so do I.
Marvel is such a weird thing where we're mid-turn at this point. So, like, we're kind of already seeing that they're starting to turn some stuff and try to fix the ship. but we're right at the beginning of them doing that, so we don't know what that's going to look like, or if they'll turn it in the right way. We'll see. But I
Yeah,
hope so.
and I don't think it. I think it would take another decade to fully fall apart where they just abandon the whole thing. Like they'll have to try a reboot and or a soft reboot, however you want to put it, and it fails before Disney finally goes, okay, I guess we're not doing the superhero thing anymore.
Yeah, and I think all eyes will be on what happens with the DCU. So I have two thoughts on this. I think
If they're both making quality things, they will help each other.
absolutely. I think
DC and Marvel in comics and movies have always had something of a symbiotic relationship.
mhm. I do think that where they put Fantastic Four next to Superman does feel like the big company coming in to try to bleed out the competitors.
Yeah, they're not thinking about it right. They need to be helping each other, not compete. This is not really a competition.
Hmm.
It's not. People want both. Most of us want both of those things to be successful.
Yeah, I want both a new Superman movie and a new Fantastic Four movie to be really good. I want 2025 to be like one of the best years of superhero movies. It sucks that the Batman got pushed out of it,
Yeah,
but I still want that.
that would have helped. That would have given us like a three-prong thing.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know
feel
how many
it felt really
DCU
good.
movies are supposed to come out in 25. Like you mentioned Supergirl, that's not that year, is it? Is Superman all we'll
No, no,
have?
no. I bet Supergirl comes out in 2026.
Okay. I would assume they've got enough time. I would assume 2026 you'll get 3, whatever they are.
I'll say at least 2. I don't know about 3, but I think we'll get at least 2.
And I'm not saying
And
he should rush that stuff out. I'm just saying he's got different, entirely different creative teams and crews working on movies. There's really, being a studio, there's really no reason you couldn't put 3 out by then, I wouldn't think.
mhm. Well, and we have shows. Like I could see it being
That
2
too.
movies, 2 shows. I'm trying to remember in that same production weekly that I mentioned with X-Men, there was talk about Lanterns and Booster Gold going into production next year. So
Interesting.
it's
What about
possible
that
because
one? What about that Amazon's show?
I don't think maybe it was in there. I can't remember. It's been too long. All I know is that Superman and Peacemaker are filming this year, so those will both be out next year, I'm sure.
Okay, good to know. Well, Austin, what? I mean, 12 shows talking about the entire history of superhero movies. Do you have like a brilliant crystallized final thought?
They done turned Silver Surfer into a girl. Superhero movies done suck now.
No, no. Why did I give you the floor? That was a mistake.
Joke's on you, loser. I just destroyed the channel.
A lot of the rhetoric I'm hearing when I am online right now is the like I said earlier, like the superhero fatigue is more than real. The whole thing is done. Let's move on. Who cares about superheroes anymore? These companies can't make good superhero movies. I don't think that we're necessarily coming up on like a new renaissance or anything. I mean, I guess that could happen in a few years. I don't know.
But the genre's not dead until like Batman, Spider-Man, and Superman aren't profitable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For my money, I think just to be selfish for a second, I think we're coming into an era that I'm going to like a lot more than the era we've had since just pre-COVID, right? Like going back to Endgame and really just before because like there was some good MCU stuff right then, but like Fox X-Men really sucked. Most of the DCU really sucked. Like it wasn't a great time for superhero movies. Um, for my money, we're coming up into a kind of an exciting, for lack of a better way of putting it, since this is the unfortunately the title that the new Captain America movie decided to go with, A Brave New World, where we're gonna have to try some things and get a little bit more experimental. The formula with MCU is not working anymore, and it's going to be kind of a new starting place for both companies, which is maybe kind of exciting, and you could get some stuff like I said earlier that is not trying as hard to be to be accessible, and might just be a little bit more thought provoking and interesting.
Mhm.
For me, that's what I want. I'm okay with not everybody caring anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree with
Kind
that.
of excited about that.
Yeah, especially because then you're not having, maybe some like the issues that we've had in the past with watering down material for a general audience to a certain degree, obviously. Um, no, I just want to be at a place where this stuff's good. Like
Yeah,
that's all I want to be at.
and I think there's an argument to be made that it got popular enough, especially with MCU, that it's maybe inevitable that it got not as good.
Hmm.
You're gonna get
Yeah,
complacent. You're gonna spin your wheels at some point.
absolutely, absolutely. And the like reverence that DC has right now for the comic side makes me happy
Yeah,
because you should be feeding off of each other. The
and
fact that
sorry.
no, I was just gonna say the fact that a bunch of those books that Gunn talked about when he announced the slate then went on to sold a bunch more is great. That's where we should be at.
Yeah, I got people looking at the material because it might inform those movies, and I wonder if these stories are any good. And they're also like I wasn't as excited about that slate as you, but a lot of the stuff that they're going to are good books, and they're looking at source material. Like they're going to tell some original stories, but they're also doing things like with Supergirl based on particular books that are really quite good. They also seem to really like the eras that I really like. Again, just to be kind of selfish about it, like they're going to some late 80s, early 90s stuff. That is the sweet spot golden era for me with DC. And so, I can't help but be excited about that.
Well, yeah, my big thing with the slate, it wasn't necessarily like, oh, this is like everything I wanted. It was just, oh, like you're very excited about making these projects, which makes me happy because even if it's things I don't care about, like Booster Gold or whatever, like maybe they'll make me care about it. And like that's when like I was a teenager or whatever, and the MCU was coming out. That was Marvel's strength. Like that was what got me to read stuff like Iron Man. Find out that I don't like Hulk in comics, stuff like that, where it was like
Yeah.
that's what I want is I want them to make me a fan of these characters, even for the ones that I don't care about. And I also think they did a really good job of having a split where it was like Swamp Thing will be looking at the '80s stuff. Supergirl's a brand new book. I think the Booster Gold run that they talked about was from like the '90s. Like there was like a bit of a mix of kind of all around. And Superman, I'm sure, will be kind of a mix of different eras too, just based on what Gunn's talked about.
Well, and they announced Teen Titans recently, which suggests that I mean, it's nice that they're already looking at some other stuff and kind of pushing forward. I guess he said right away that like it's really only the first half of the slate.
Hmm. Yeah,
I forgot
yeah,
about that,
exactly. Yeah, and Teen
but
Titans is weird because Hollywood Reporter announced it, and then they've never acknowledged it. Like it's really weird.
oh, weird. So like maybe it's a leak and they don't want to talk about it yet, but it is real. Is that likely?
Probably because I think in that article they said like they just hired a writer for it, so it's probably like a
They're not ready
let's
to talk
not
about it.
we're not ready to talk about it. Exactly. But it was the same writer as Supergirl, so clearly they liked working with her.
Okay, well that's good.
That's my big question for you, Cap.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, does Supergirl keep the subtitle, or does that get dropped like Superman? Because I could see that going both ways now.
Yeah, I could too. I don't know the answer to that.
I just thought I'd ask you. Throw you a curveball for a change.
Yeah, well, I I wonder if they're gonna have a uniform thing with that, where after we decided not to, I'm gonna say Gunn probably isn't being uniform about it. Like, he claims he took Legacy off of the title because when he got through a second draft, that was just the title, because he's working like a writer. It's just nice to hear writers, talk like that. Where it's not just about the money at the box office. It's, well, when I was initially writing, because I'm a title guy, the title of this movie was Superman Legacy, and now that I've looked at it again, that means that, like, for thematically what the story's about, that title didn't speak to him anymore, and just making it Superman. I appreciate that from a writer's standpoint. So based on that, my thinking is the writers of the movies, or the writers, directors, what have you, will have a lot of say about what those movies are called. So I would assume that some of them will have monikers and some of them will not. I started to say maybe because Superman is just Superman, they all have to be that way. I doubt seriously if that's what he does.
Yeah, I think Batman will keep Brave and the Bold just out of confusion with the Batman. Like, you kind of want that to have something. But tomorrow,
Yeah, me too.
Gunn will come out and say, you know what? I looked at my script again and I realized it's not Superman. It's Superman asterisk. And you'll understand when we get there.
I realized it was Superman?
Superman?
Plushy DX Gunn had a post about New 52 runs he liked, which freaked people out. Yeah.
Oh, it freaked people out because it was like 5 runs and one of them was Red Hood and the Outlaws.
People loved that book, though.
Yeah.
Like, that was really well liked. No, he's got weird taste in comics. That doesn't mean that the movies are going to be terrible, and it doesn't mean that he's only going to greenlight stuff that he likes. Because he did a video a couple years ago going through his favorite superhero movies, and it's a really weird list. But as a producer, I can tell he's not only, or as like the guy running the whole show, I can tell that he's not only greenlighting like his favorite stuff.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I mean, there's maybe more of the kind of things that I felt like he would make that I was hoping to see in the initial slate, which is why I wasn't real high on it at first. It was a lot of like, okay, of course you're doing worse than Batman. Of course you're doing a Swamp Thing. But the more I thought about it, it seemed like I don't think that Supergirl book is a thing that he would want to make.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, just out of those two, I think we've talked about this, but like with Batman, like I already have my Batman. Like, I don't really Brave and the Bold's kind of a wash for me, where it's like I already have the one that I want. Whatever they do is fine. I don't really care. I'm just glad we're getting a Swamp Thing, because Swamp Thing's cool. And curse you, the green. you will be possessed by the green, sir.
Oh God, not the green. What I have to get to see that's the real reason I was disappointed. I got the green and Booster Gold.
You should read the Jeff Lemire Old Man Swamp Thing book that came out, where it's all about the green and the red and all that stuff, and they're all at war with each other.
Oh, of course.
That book is really cool, but yeah.
Is it? Okay.
It was weird in that it was like, hey, we're making Old Man Swamp Thing, and then it's like, psych, it's actually Old Man DC canon Vertigo, where it's like, here's Old Man Constantine and like Animal Man.
Because that premise just sounds like taking the Green Lantern spectrum and putting it on Swamp Thing.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and it's got like an evil Swamp Thing. I don't know. I thought that book was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, like, color me superficial. I'm sure that all he had to do, like, I was excited about the Supergirl announcement. I'm a selfish jerk face. All I needed, like, I hadn't thought about this before. If he had just announced like actual Birds of Prey or Red Lanterns, I probably would have been like over the moon. Like, the whole thing would have been, I've been so excited. It just had to be one of those.
Well, Cassandra Cain's his favorite Batgirl cap. So.
I know. I want her to get a solo movie, and I think he should give her a solo movie just to like stick it to Zaslav, where it's like, here's a Batgirl movie you're not gonna delete, okay?
You know what? You know what it's gonna be though, Cap. Tomorrow he's gonna be
Uh-oh.
like, "We're making Cassandra Cain, and she's the only other actress outside of the ones that I picked that I'm bringing back from the old universe."
I'll boycott the whole thing. I'll shut the channel down. I'm done with superhero movies after that crap. Yeah. So I mean, is it contradictory? Is it wrong of me to say the future to me looks both uncertain and maybe bright? Like, can it be
Yeah,
both? That's kind of where I'm at.
it's an uneasy, hopeful ending.
Yeah, I feel better about it than I did a few years ago.
Gotham was flooded, but we showed that we represent hope.
I will say, if we were still limping along with the DCEU right now, with the place where the MCU is, I would probably be in pretty dour spirits.
Hmm. Absolutely.
I just
The only thing I would have
couldn't
to
deal
look
with
forward
having to go to the theater and watch one more of those damn movies. Like, I was
the
so
only thing I
done
would
with
have
it.
to look forward to is the Hellboy reboot. That'd be it.
Yeah, and I mean, I hope that's good, but I don't really care that much.
Yeah.
Well, and the Batman 2 in 5 years.
Yeah. In 12 years.
I feel like there's something else coming in the not too distant future that I was curious about, but I can't think of what.
They announced that new Rob Liefeld comic movie. Is it that? Whatever that was called. I can't. It was like Evangeline or something.
Oh, really? I didn't know about that. Yeah,
Yeah, it was
yeah, Evangeline.
Yeah, it was just announced. Margot Robbie's producing it, and
What?
Olivia Wilde's directing it. Yeah.
You know what we need now? We need Ninjak.
I don't know what that is, but only if it's Lego Ninja.
Lego Ninjak. Anyway, well, I hope everybody enjoyed this lengthy series about the history of superhero movies. We did it. We got all the way through it. I'm sure we missed out on somebody's favorite movie that they would want us to bring up and discuss briefly in this, but there are lots and lots of them. We didn't really talk very much about the like home video side. It was mostly theatrical stuff.
When there's somebody that's like, Condor Man is my favorite superhero movie, and you guys didn't bring it up once, there you go. I gave you a bone.
Okay, to be fair, we kept it almost exclusively American, I think.
Okay, or Meteor Man. I don't know, something.
I mean, like, speaking of Australian stuff, like we didn't bring up one of our favorite superhero movies, which is Return of Captain Invincible.
That is true.
That didn't come up. There is a possibility that ends up on the Superhero Rewind commentary project soon.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Because we're doing a wheel spin for the next one, and I think that's on it.
A good old-fashioned wheel. Yeah, I'm excited.
I say for the one after the next one, because the next one is
Jumper.
a requested movie. It's Jumper. Austin, are you ready to reveal our next series of Superhero Rewind unscripted videos? Again,
Yes,
it will probably be somewhere between 8 and 12 parts, and we'll do it like this, just every couple of weeks if we can fit it in.
Here, I'll give you a little drum roll. You waited too long. Now I gotta do it again.
Oh, am I? Well, I didn't know what you were doing. Am I supposed to say what it is?
Okay, are you ready?
Okay, sorry. I thought you were drum rolling and also because it's easier to time that if you do the drum roll and then you say what it is.
No. We're professionals. Okay, here we go.
Sure, that's what let's call ourselves. Austin and I are doing our what?
We suck. Okay, that's it.
I don't understand what you're doing.
Nothing. Sorry.
Well, you're all the way in Canada. There's going to be something of a disconnect with time.
I know. It's just there was enough disconnected. It made me laugh. I'm sorry.
Anyway, so announcing our next series, Austin and I are going to count down our personal 100 favorite superhero movies. I think we should say favorite.
Yes.
Don't you think?
AKA objectively the best, and if you're wrong and you disagree with us, then you should just unsubscribe.
If you disagree with both of us, because they're not gonna be companion lists. Like, they're not the same list.
As far as you know, we could line up perfectly.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
It could.
So you guys won't be probably as surprised with some of my list because, of course, I've been reviewing these things forever, and a lot of you guys know my favorite superhero movies. But doing 100, there might be some kind of surprises here and there. And Austin is a lot more of an asterisk. I mean, a question mark.
A hyphen with no follow up.
So we're gonna do it like this series, where instead of doing like 10 at a time or anything, I think we'll just do a timer with it and get wherever we get.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
And do as many parts as we have to. So if we only get through 4 or 5 in a part, that's what we'll do, and we'll just see how many parts it takes.
Yeah, you can all guess in the comments now how long it'll take us to get through this. All like 18,000 parts.
Yeah,
100 parts even, or 200. For all we know, we can talk about one movie in an hour.
And we'll be like, oh, we got to talk about Austin's next movie next time.
Yeah, it gets really annoying when there's overlap. So it's like we did an hour on, I don't know, Batman Begins, and then like in a couple episodes we do another hour on Batman Begins.
Well, we're not going to do like full reviews of these things, and some of them will be things that we've done commentaries on together or we've reviewed at some point.
Yeah, well, there's definitely ones on my list that it's been so long since I've seen them that it's more so going off memory.
You're not going to have as much to mention about it. So we'll have kind of mini discussions on this thing. Is that it'll be a lot of just, here's why I picked this thing.
Yeah,
it'll probably be a lot of, here's why you picked this thing and I did not pick this thing.
Exactly. Gareth Gearhart. Jareth Gearhart. Yes, it includes animated movies.
Yeah, what's the criteria for this? Just so everybody knows.
Just everything.
Yeah.
It's a superhero movie. There's also, I will say, like 2 movies on my list that I will have to defend in picking as a superhero movie, but we'll get there when we get there.
Is that because 100 was a big number for you?
No, it's because I've always classified them, but most people don't.
Okay.
So it's one of those.
Okay. I feel like we should have criteria that eliminates those things. But I'm just kidding. You put whatever you want to there.
I will defend it and I will be right, okay?
I'm not saying this to reveal any movies on my list, and I haven't actually gotten started on this project yet.
I'm at 90.
Just FYI, Austin's actually been working on this. We're not going to start for a couple weeks, so I've got a little bit of time. But and this kind of being the thing I do for as long as it has been, it should be easier for me to put a list together than Austin.
Yeah, I think I hit 80 like a brick wall where it was like, uh-oh.
Wow. See, I figure I'll probably start with like 150 contenders and I'll have to take things off of it. That's what I'm expecting will happen.
And that's what I was expecting more so. And then as I was going, I was like, oh, this wasn't as easy as I thought it was. And now there's.
But I know the animated side a lot better than you, and there are probably like 15 or 20 of those that I'll start with and I'll act some, but
yeah, sure. Yeah.
That'll help me pad it if I need to pad it. I don't know.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, I have like a list of, I feel like 12 movies where it's like, watch these.
Yeah.
And see if they make your list.
Yeah, Austin's been doing homework for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If you
great.
follow me on Letterboxd, like over the last couple months, there's been like a little bit of me just adding things for that.
And all he's doing is superhero stuff.
Mixing it in, but in like the next few weeks, it's probably going to be a lot more of that. But
yeah, well, thanks for getting that put together. I think that's going to be a really fun series.
Absolutely.
And I assume we'll start at 100 and work our way down.
That's the annoying thing is you have to have it all because you go from worst to best. So it's like I have so much that's done, but I have to have it all done.
Yeah, and we should probably have a rule that you can't move anything around once it's locked in.
That's why I wanted to do it early, was I didn't want to have like oh man, like why did I put this here? Like I wanted to have enough time that I could do that.
We're going to do this over several months, and it's going to be weird if by the end of it you don't even agree with some of your choices.
Yeah, or if you have to like retroactively be like, okay, like I know I said this in like 6 videos ago, but it's changed.
I don't really feel the same way about it now. I watched it again. It wasn't that good.
Look, I know I said Howard the Duck was #1, but like I feel like it's kind of come down at least one or two.
It's still in my top 5.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not #1 exactly.
Yeah, like deciding, like it'll just be up to us individually because we're not going to know each other's list ahead of time. But like, what is the definition of a superhero movie is always kind of tricky. In this case, I was going to say this earlier, and this is not to reveal anything because I don't even know what's going to be on my list yet. But there's a little bit with this of what even constitutes a movie.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
like if they, and I'm thinking mostly about animated stuff, but if something was released on disc as a movie but didn't start that way, does it count?
Ooh,
Like,
that is hard.
what is it?
Superman and
That's what I
Batman.
was gonna say. The three, what is that? Like 3-part, like animated feature where it was released as a feature but it wasn't initially aired that way. Like, does that count? That kind of thing.
I would say probably not, but like you can
That's
make an argument for it. And I think as long as you can make an argument for it, you're fine.
and it
And
probably has to be long enough.
yeah, but then also like, could you put like, let's just say Werewolf by Night, like it's like a special, like would that
Is
count?
that a movie? The Guardians Christmas special.
Yeah,
Can you put that on the list?
yeah, and I'll say for my list as right now, I haven't included that.
Okay.
But like, if you did, like, I don't really care. It's fine.
Okay. So we don't have to be super consistent with this.
Yeah, like I said, there are at least two movies that I'm going to have to defend as being superhero movies. So
You make me want to try to come up with those for myself.
yeah.
You know, like if I was a really, this won't wind up there, but like if I was a huge fan of the Downey Sherlock Holmes movies,
Hmm.
like those are superhero movies, I would totally put one of those on there.
Yeah, I mean it counts. I also reflected off of the list of things that are eligible on the that list.
Oh, great. Yep, good call. I'm gonna need you to send me the link to that again.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there was a few things where I
I
was
don't
looking at
remember
it.
how to even access that now.
I think it's in the description of at least some of the rewind
Oh,
videos,
maybe
maybe
so.
just in general.
Was that
But
a
I can resend
letterboxed list? I can't even remember what it is now.
it. Is, yeah.
Okay, okay, cool.
My top 100 superhero movies though is a privated list, so you can't go to my account and try to find it. You skeeving
I
commenters.
oh, I thought you meant me. Like I don't want to
No,
know.
no, no.
This will be much more fun if I have no idea what's coming.
No, I'm talking about our horrible fans that we loathe.
I Yeah, I can't wait to see if we have any overlap. I mean, obviously we'll have some as far as just, it's 100 movies. I would say at least 30 to 40% have to be the same.
I would think so. The
Maybe
main
more
question
than
is
that.
how close to
How
being the
high
same
up?
number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
will any of them happen to wind up on the same number? Because that'll be fun if that happens.
Absolutely. Yeah.
My number 19 is also the thing you said. That'll be amazing. I know we're going on a long time about this, but I wanted to do all the preamble for that now. So that
Yeah.
when we actually get there, we can just launch in.
We won't have just a whole video of preamble.
That's what I'm trying to avoid. You
I
gotta be
won't
really
do it
excited to get
anyways.
started on this, though.
Yeah, no, it was exciting. I've watched 2 movies for it today, and they both made my list.
Wow,
So
wow, cool. I know what one of those is.
you do, and you wouldn't even be able to guess what the second one is.
Ooh.
I don't think. I mean, it was on the list that I sent you of movies I have to go through, but you
Okay,
don't know which
I'm
one.
gonna go look at that and try to guess. We'll be cryptic for a second, but isn't that a shockingly good movie?
It's a great movie. I could not believe that. Like, I missed that as a child because I would have loved it growing up. I was like, this is so much just of the stuff that I liked as a kid that I feel so ashamed that kid me did not get to watch that.
I knew you would like that.
Yeah.
I didn't know how much, but
Yeah, it was great. It was wonderful.
well, anyway,
yeah, we're not giving any hints.
we're gonna be cryptic. I will say that is a movie on the short list for the commentary project. So that's why we're being cryptic. The thing, well, partly, we also don't want to say what any of our movies on our list will be.
Exactly.
Even though you can guess 35 of mine right now, if you know me. But that is in like 3 shows. I think it's in 3 shows.
Something like that. Yeah.
Somebody requested it officially, so.
Exactly.
All right, folks. Well, thanks a lot for watching our impromptu history of superhero movies. It's done. It's finished. We did the whole history.
Whoa!
The 1920s up to now. 100 years of superhero movies.
We've been going so late. I thought you said the 2020s up till now.
The 2020s up to now.
Like, what?
It took 12 parts
to talk about the last 4 years.
Well, I had to say the 20s because there were silent Zorro films.
Because that is technically when we started.
Technically started 100 years ago. Isn't that cool? No, Day and Spirit is not The Rocketeer.
Though I will say that is one movie I watched months ago to prepare for this. Whether it made my list.
But you won't tell us if it made your list.
I don't know, but that is a movie I watched.
I would bet money it did. I bet it's on the low end, but I bet it did.
I don't know, maybe it did, maybe it didn't.
AMC, you know all those Geekvolution fans Cap and Austin hate? I'm the worst one. That's pretty good. Wait, and then plus just said, cool?
Have I ever told you that I can't... That joke has now been so separated from X2 for me that when I watch Spider-Man 3, I hear that line because of Marvel Mania.
Oh, that's weird.
It's like when Sandman's in the truck. So...
The line I can't get away from in Spider-Man 3 is, God, I want you to kill Peter Parker.
That is a good one.
It's
if we had
so
the top 100 lines, that's like number 1.
We should do a quote one. That would be cool.
That would be fun.
That's a neat idea. And it wouldn't take a million parts.
No, you would just be like, it's this. That'd be a really fun one to try to quick fire, where you go through 100 superhero movie quotes.
Well, what an excellent idea. I feel like that one you'd have to plan together, though, because you wouldn't want to overlap with those.
Yes.
Don't you think?
Well, you just if somebody throws out one that you have, just be like, oh yeah, it's on mine too.
But then you wouldn't get a clean 100.
Yeah.
So I'm saying I would think you would want a clean 100 where like you each have 50 and you make sure that there's no repeats.
Or there's just no discussion and it's just the two of us throwing out lines that we like.
Yeah, that's all right. I like how Austin is like, no, I don't want discussion on our discussion show.
Exactly. Let me just quote movie I like.
Austin, in all sincerity, I want to thank you for helping me keep this whole thing going for the last few years, man.
Yeah, sorry, this dog's barking to go outside. But yeah.
What was that thing you said about professionalism? I don't...
that you're not professional, and I am.
I think you got to strike that and reverse it.
Put your thing down, flip it, and reverse it. Okay, Missy Elliott.
I'm just gonna wait for Austin because it's gonna be
awkward
to just end the show here.
I'm moving.
No, you're fine.
I was gonna turn any lights on, so I'm trying not to fall.
This is gonna be great for people listening to this audio only.
I know, right? What a beautiful ending. This really is the Lord of the Rings of Geekvolution ending.
Okay, I'm gonna start this heartfelt thing over again. Austin, I wanna thank you for helping me keep this going for the last few years.
You're welcome.
Okay, everybody, we appreciate you. That's as much of like like gushing thank you as you're gonna get from me. Everybody, thanks a lot for being here. We sure appreciate it. We'll be back hopefully in a couple weeks with the start of our top 100 superhero movies between each other, and the Superhero Rewind Commentary Project resumes next Friday night with Jumper. That was requested by Tom, which is a movie I've never seen.
Same here, but I remember seeing the trailer in front of like half the DVDs I had at one point.
They might as well have just called it Sand.
I want to say that's one of the trailers on the Spider-Man 3 DVD.
But you know what? I think that's right.
I feel like that's right. And like Ghost Rider, I think. I don't know. They're all around that time. Anyway, no one cares.
Nobody cares. So we're going to do that. Nobody's going to care about that commentary either, I don't think. But we got to do them all, man. And it's on the list.
Yep, they're like Pokemon. We got to get them all.
Yeah, that's been my whole career, is just with superhero movies. It's just one Pokeball.
Yeah.
Catching
you never win
movies.
The tournaments, Ash, but maybe one day.
We'll see you later, folks. I was Captain Logan, and this was Austin the Day Ghost.
I was here, but not fully present.
I feel that way myself sometimes. Bye, everybody.
See ya.